Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 213, Chapter 213, A Sneak Attack and Ruthless Words. Chapter 213, A Sneak Attack and Ruthless Words. Kali passed through the crack and came to a small world shrouded in eternal night. He looked down at the hole in his abdomen with a complicated expression. After a while, he took a deep breath and began to pray. The prayer was a long and gorgeous praise. The specific content seemed to revolve around a theft. And the person being praised was a guy called the God of Thief. As the long and gorgeous prayer went on, the shadow on Kali's body gradually separated and condensed into a slender statue in black leather armor with a faceless black mask on its face. However, the leather armor on the abdomen of the statue had disappeared for some reason, leaving only an irregularly shaped gap. The corner of Kali's eyes twitched as she took a deep breath. After that, the long prayer repeated itself, and Kali continued to pray from the beginning. Ji Xiaoxiao was speechless. He could tell that this guy seemed to be summoning something. The shadow state that allowed him to ignore physical contact was not an ability he had. However, the summoning process was a little too complicated. Earlier, Ji Xiaoxiao had planned to cooperate with Jiruo, but the strange shadow state had also included him. He was in Kali's pocket and could not affect anything. Later, he was brought back. My God! Kali finally finished reciting the long prayer twice. She knelt on the ground with a devout expression and called out softly. The pitch-black statue opened its eyes. My loyal believer! A hoarse voice slowly rang out. It was eerie and mysterious. However, this mystery did not last long. The statue of theft sensed something and subconsciously reached out to touch its abdomen. Where's the leather armor on my abdomen? The eerie and mysterious feeling instantly disappeared. The god statue's heart was bleeding. This was a thief god relic condensed from the divine power he had accumulated for countless years. How did it break? Kali was so scared that she kept kowtowing. My God, I'm really sorry. We encountered a moving statue this time. That statue can capture me under the blessing of divine spells. Jiruo had the indestructible diamond divine art to protect his body. Although it was only the first stage of the Vajrachi refinement, its hardness could not be underestimated. Kali saw clearly that Jiruo wasn't wearing any armor at that time, and the sleeve arrows he shot couldn't leave any marks on Jiruo's body. So, until now, he still thought that Jiruo was really a statue, but he could move. The eyes behind the mask of the god of thief narrowed. Killing intent surged in his eyes. He wanted to kill Kali to vent his anger. But after weighing the pros and cons, he gave up on this idea. Forget it, forget it. He didn't have many believers, and there were even fewer such devout believers. He couldn't kill them, couldn't kill them. The god of theft took a deep breath. He was captured. The god of thieves was speechless. Fortunately, he didn't kill them. Otherwise, the two fanatics' believers would be gone. Ji Xiaoxiao hid in Kali's waist bag, looking out through the gap, eavesdropping on the conversation. Believers? God. He rubbed his chin and was a little puzzled. Don't think I've heard of this thing in Great Xia. Is this a specialty of the new mystic realm? Outside the pouch, Kali was reporting to his god about what had happened. What do you mean? The so-called god's voice was cold. In other words, not only did you not steal anything during this theft, but you also lost Josie and a part of my godly armor. No, no, no. My God, I've gained something. Kali quickly took out a small plan from her purse and said, although it was dangerous this time, I still stole a statue in the chaos. Ji Xiaoxiao quickly disguised herself as a statue again and remained motionless. Why is it so small? He took the super small holy statue that Ji Xiaoxiao had disguised as and sensed it carefully. He did sense an extremely condensed and unusually pure intent, which was not much different from the previous statues. Kali was also stunned because he realized that the actions of this small statue seemed to be a little different from when he stuffed it into his pocket. My God! Kali opened her mouth and was about to say something. The god turned around with Ji Xiaoxiao and said, LVE already understood what happened. Since it's an emergency, I won't hold you responsible. Go back first and do what you should do. His armor was damaged, and one of his fanatics was gone. Such a great loss, but he only stole a palm-sized statue. In order to maintain his dignified image in front of his believers, he could not stay any longer. My God is merciful. Kali quickly said. After that, Kali left the small eternal night space. After Kali left, the god of thief finally couldn't hold it in anymore and roared, Ah! My godly armor! My fanatic believers! Ji Xiaoxiao was going to attack, but seeing the situation, he held back. Let's wait and see if we can find any clues about the stolen statues, Ji Xiaoxiao thought to herself and continued to stay still. She activated her indestructible diamond and disguised herself as a statue. The god of thief vented for a while and finally calmed down. I didn't expect that world to be so dangerous, forget it, he wouldn't go there in the future. It wouldn't be a loss to absorb the faith from those statues. The god mumbled as he held Ji Xiaoxiao and walked towards a certain place in the eternal night space. Ji Xiaoxiao saw the 3 stolen statues. The god of thief placed Ji Xiaoxiao next to the 3 holy statues. He didn't seem to do anything, but a formation with complicated patterns suddenly appeared under Ji Xiaoxiao and the other 3 holy statues. Strands of golden light were extracted from the 3 statues and merged into the god of thief's body. The damaged leather armor on its abdomen was slowly repairing. What a powerful and pure faith. No matter how many times it is used, it will make the gods intoxicated. The god was absorbed in the absorption. Ji Xiaoxiao stared at the god of thief. He didn't know what the other party was doing, but as the other party was absorbing, Ji Xiaoxiao could clearly feel that the voices of the other 3 holy statues were weakening at an extremely slow speed. Moreover, this kind of behavior was obviously very beneficial to this so-called god. Ji Xiaoxiao understood the principle of a little forbearance will ruin a big scheme, so dash. He suddenly leaped up and struck his palm at the hole in the other party's abdomen with all his strength. The shadow of a 100-storied tower suddenly condensed behind Ji Xiaoxiao. The giant was only 1 or 2 meters tall compared to Ji Xiaoxiao's body. Countless inner demons flew out from the apparition of the inner demon residence. A large amount of inner demon obsessions condensed into a pitch-black palm print that ruthlessly slapped the abdomen of the god who could not react in time, sending him flying. Ji Xiaoxiao's furious voice rang out at this moment, "How dare you plot against our great Xia's martial arts saint? Old thief, take this. Human realm, heart demon residence." He had to shout out the name of the move. However, if he shouted it out in advance, it would not have the effect of a sneak attack. Moreover, there was no rule that these things had to shout before attacking. It had to be said that Ji Xiaoxiao's sneak attack was very successful. After he sent the so-called god flying, he didn't pursue the victory. Instead, he turned around and used the Wanxiang mirror fragment that Ji Ruo had given him again to store all 3 holy statues in the Wanxiang space. Then, Ji Xiaoxiao didn't stop. She took out 2 spiraling balls, one spinning inwards and the other spinning outwards, digging a big pit in the ground. Ji Xiaoxiao jumped into the pit. Then, the inner spiral ball exerted force and sucked back the soil that had been pushed away by the outer spiral ball, burying Ji Xiaoxiao. The eternal night space returned to its calm state. Chapter 214, Chapter 214, Funeral Store. Chapter 214, Funeral Store. Damn it! Ji Xiaoxiao's full-strength palm strike did not cause any substantial damage to the god of thief. Even if he was not good at fighting, he was still a god. Although due to the uniqueness of the clergy, he did not have many believers. But a god was a god after all. The god of thief returned to the place where the holy statues were placed, but the 3 holy statues and Ji Xiaoxiao were nowhere to be seen. "This is my divine territory," he sneered. "Where can you hide?" As he spoke, countless shadows surged in the eternal night space and condensed into the hands of thieves. They moved silently and gently. In just a moment, Ji Xiaoxiao was pulled out from the ground. Although Ji Xiaoxiao had already cast disguise and substitution on herself, this was the god of thief's territory, so there was no way for her to hide. Ji Xiaoxiao wasn't nervous at all. Instead, she urged, "You found me so quickly?" He was quite powerful. "Now it's your turn, go hide, I'll find you." The god of thief sneered. "Meow dash, what should we do now? Will little master be in danger? How can we save him?" Luo Qian said worriedly. Ji Ruo thought for a moment and said, "Don't worry. After all, he's my inner demon. I believe in him. Don't worry, nothing will happen. However, we can't do nothing either. He's probably already been brought to the new mystic realm that hasn't completely descended yet. He would find an opportunity to ask the captive about the new mythical realm." Ji Ruo woke up early in the morning. After greeting the villagers and the martial artists stationed there, he went straight to the place where Jiaoshi was imprisoned. He said that he did not need to worry, but in fact, he was still a little anxious. Although Ji Xiaoxiao was the inner demon, as long as Ji Ruo and Chen Mo were still alive, it would be difficult for Ji Xiaoxiao to die. However, if Ji Ruo could go to the rescue in time, the divine weapon would descend from the sky at the moment of crisis and shout, "Little thing, I'm here to save you." How cool would that be? Not only Ji Xiaoxiao, but also the stolen holy statue. Ji Xiaoxiao had the Wanxiang mirror fragment on her, so Ji Ruo could use the Wanxiang travel to locate her and head there. Although the secret realm hadn't completely descended, the power of fantasy creation didn't make sense. However, before going, he still had to understand the situation in the mystic realm first. Eh? What's that? From afar, Jiruo could see that in the place where Josie was imprisoned, there was another strangely shaped rectangular object. It was completely black, and under the morning sun, it emitted a strange metallic glow. The style is narrow at the top and wide at the bottom, looking a little like the coffin. However, compared to a normal coffin, it looked a little small. Not only that, but there were also several thick chains tied to it. On the cuboid, there were even blood-red patterns engraved on it. Those patterns might not have been seen in Great Xia, but they were not uncommon before transmigration. Talisman. However, whether it was before or after transmigration, this thing was feudal superstition. Today, it was Hu Yonglin and the other martial artists' turn to watch over Josie, but they seemed to be used to the rectangular object that looked like a coffin in front of Josie. Jiruo, so early. Hee, how can a martial artist sleep in? Jiruo didn't go to Jiaoxi's side immediately. Instead, he found Hu Yonglin and asked curiously, Brother Hu, what is that? Why does it look like? It looks like a coffin, doesn't it? Hu Yonglin smiled helplessly. Hu Yonglin pulled Jiruo to a different angle so that he could see the back of the coffin. From a different angle, Jiruo could clearly see that the coffin was actually carried by a person. Hu Yonglin then continued, that person's name is Gu Shaoxian, he's a strange person. Weirdo. Jiruo nodded at the thought, it's quite strange. Who would carry a metal coffin around early in the morning? Is he a villager from the Eight Treasures stronghold? Jiruo asked curiously. No, Hu Yonglin shook his head and said, this guy runs a funeral supplies shop. He doesn't usually stay in his shop. He likes to carry that metal coffin and walk around the border. He sells his funeral business to the martial artists and residents stationed at the border. When the Eight Treasures stronghold was under lockdown, he happened to be selling to this stronghold. Later, when it was under lockdown, he couldn't get out, so he stayed here to help us. However, he isn't a garrison martial artist, so we won't ask him to follow us on patrol. He went to bed early last night. When he heard that the thief had been caught this morning, he volunteered to help with the interrogation. I see. Jiruo was deep in thought. Selling funeral services all over the border. Although Hu Yonglin did not say it explicitly, Jiruo could roughly guess that this guy called Gu Shaoxian was probably not likable. After all, most of the martial artists guarding the border regarded sanctification as the highest honor, and the statue of the martial saint did not need to be buried. After some thought, Jiruo walked towards Gu Shaoxian and said politely, Hello, I'm Jiruo. My name is Gu Shaoxian. Gu Shaoxian was a little surprised, but he still said enthusiastically, I haven't seen you before. You shouldn't be from the Eight Treasures stronghold, right? I heard that this thief was caught by a little hero last night. Could it be you? Chen Mo promptly condensed a black dialogue box above Jiruo's head. That's right. It's me. Gu Shaoxian was stunned for a moment before he laughed out loud. He did not find it strange. To be able to catch a thief, it meant that Ruo was not a weak martial artist. His martial arts were profound, and his effects were all strange. It was just a dialogue box. Although it was rare, it was normal. Brother Jiruo, are you interested in learning about my family's funeral business? Gu Shaoxian suddenly pulled Jiruo and said, being buried is an excellent traditional culture that has been passed down in Great Xia for many years. Let me tell you. Gu Shaoxian introduced his family's business to Jiruo in a very friendly manner, and Jiruo was stunned. After the general introduction, Gu Shaoxian winked and said, neither of us are from the Eight Treasures stronghold, nor are we martial artists stationed in the establishment. The world is so big, but we actually met here. It's so fated. We hit it off at first sight. Why don't we become sworn brothers? In the future, if you ask me for help, I'll give you a 40% discount. Jiruo smiled awkwardly. Thank you, but I won't consider it for the time being. Don't consider what? Would they become sworn brothers or would they get a 40% discount on funerals? I won't consider. Jiruo pondered for 2 seconds. Alright, then if brother Jiruo ever changes your mind, remember to look for me. Alright, I won't let you have the chance to do business with me, Jiruo replied politely. Gu Shaoxian smiled and did not continue the topic. Instead, he said, Brother Jiruo, are you also here to admire this beautiful captive? What do you mean? Aren't you here to help with the interrogation? What? Well, yes, I'm here to help with the interrogation. I believed you. Chapter 215, Chapter 215, Believing in the Divine Deo. Chapter 215, Believing in the Divine Deo. In fact, Jiruo was not in a hurry. After all, Ji Xiaoxia was not a normal life form, so she would not die so easily. Therefore, Jiruo could actually be more relaxed. He could slowly get familiar with the garrison martial artists and then slowly blend into the garrison martial artists team without any flaws. In that case, at least Jiruo wouldn't have to bear much risk. Moreover, with Ji Xiaoxio's ability, it wouldn't be a big problem for her to hide for a while. Jiruo could wait, Ji Xiaoxiao could wait, but Jiaoshi couldn't. This fellow was clearly a human from the mystic realm. He used a language that was completely different from Great Xia's and had a culture that was completely different from Great Xia's. The Eight Treasures stronghold was indeed under lockdown, but could this guy stay in the Eight Treasures stronghold forever? The philologist had to record and translate a new language, the epidemic prevention department had to test whether this guy carried any virus that could threaten Great Xia, and the National Defense Department had to interrogate whether there was a powerful military force in the new mythical realm. In short, Jiruo did not intend to talk to Josie so soon, but after careful consideration, he realized that Josie would not stay in the Eight Treasures stronghold for too long. Therefore, Jiruo Ki came to ask early in the morning. He ignored Gu Shaoxian and squatted in front of Jiaoshi. At this moment, Jiruo had already changed into ordinary clothes and the paint on his body had been washed clean. His hair turned black again. Jiaoshi looked at Jiruo and felt that he looked familiar. She mumbled, "Grunt. This person looks like the statue from last night, damn it." It was all because of that statue. The Lord God's mission could not be completed. Jiruo replied with a smile, "Wulla wulla. Is it possible that I am that statue? I have something to ask you." Josie was obviously stunned. Then, Josie quickly said, "Wulla lala. Can you understand what I'm saying?" Jiruo, "You can understand her?" Gu Shaoxian asked curiously. "Of course I don't understand." Jiruo turned around and smiled. "Then you." "I'm just trying," Jiruo said casually. Then, he ignored Gu Shaoxian. "Wahaha. Tell me, what is this god you speak of? Why did you steal the holy image?" Josie's eyes widened as if he was still unable to accept that the statue from yesterday had suddenly become a living person today. After all, if the statue was really a human, how could a body of flesh and blood without armor block the attack of a sleeve arrow? After recovering from his shock, Josie sneered, "Wulla lala. I am the most loyal believer of the god of thief. Do you think I will betray my god? You despicable otherworldly people, don't even think about getting any information from me." "Hey, hey, hey." Jiruo rubbed his chin. "God of theft? A faithful believer? You believe in the divine Dao, right? Wulla lala. What belief in the divine path? God is God." Jiruo suddenly understood and said, "LT's crooked? I understand. You don't know much. Let me rephrase my question. What can your god do?" "Guji. Our divine division is in charge of theft. There is nothing in the world that he can't steal," Josie said proudly. Although Josie was tight-lipped, she could not help but brag when it came to the so-called god of theft. Jiruo also obtained the information he wanted through some small details. Josie didn't acknowledge any belief in the divine path, but it seemed like the gods did need believers. Gods had godly domains and an unimaginably long lifespan. They could also bestow powerful divine spells to devout believers. For example, the divine spell that Kali had used to escape was bestowed by the god of thief. That was the god of thief's signature divine spell. According to Josie, it seemed to be able to ignore all restrictions, enter any venue, and steal anything he wanted. However, that god didn't seem to be very strong. Jiruo had just played a video of a Chi Pulse Realm Warriors battle for Josie. Josie was very surprised by the warrior's performance in the video. But when Jiruo asked how the god of thief compared to a Chi Pulse Realm warrior, Josie said with disdain, "A real thief would not fight with the enemy head-on. A thief should sneak in gracefully and steal without leaving a trace." The general meaning was that the god of thief was not good at fighting. Stealing the divine territory. Huff. Huff. Huff huff. The god of thief hid in the shadows, panting heavily. He had hidden it well. 1,2,3 Have you hidden the truth? I'm going to start looking. Ji Xiaoxiao finished counting and started to look for the god of thief who was hiding. The god of thief in the shadows recalled everything that had happened earlier, and his face was filled with horror. Previously, the god of thief had intended to kill Ji Xiaoxiao, but after a simple attempt, he found that he was no match for Ji Xiaoxiao. So after being pressed to the ground by Ji Xiaoxiao for a friendly rubbing business, he played hide-and-seek with Ji Xiaoxiao. He really couldn't figure out how such a palm-sized little guy could be so strong. It was clearly not as big as his feet, but he had flipped him over and hit him left and right with a terrifying force. Although he did not suffer any substantial damage, it still hurt. Who would have thought that he, a god, would be beaten up by that little guy for an entire night? Heh, I didn't want to play before. Look, aren't you hiding pretty well? It's really hard to find. Ji Xiaoxio's devilish voice rang out, causing the god of thief to tremble. This was a god's art of theft. It could completely hide its whereabouts and disappear without a trace. How could it be so easy to find it? In the shadows, the more the god of thief thought about it, the more aggrieved he felt. Damned little monster, how dare you be so impudent in my divine domain? The god of thief gritted his teeth and whispered. Vulgar monster, I might not be your match in a direct battle, but in terms of assassination. He took out a black dagger and silently approached Ji Xiaoxiao, determined to kill her in one blow. The divine territory was not big. Ji Xiaoxiao searched around several times but could not find where the god of thief was hiding. Suddenly, Ji Xiaoxiao looked down at the white line that suddenly appeared on the ground and raised her eyebrows. You still want to attack me? Ji Xiaoxiao didn't hesitate. She turned her back to the safe route that her first line instinct had drawn out. He saw the god of thief silently gesturing behind him with a dagger in his hand. He grinned and said, "Are you tired of living?" The god of thief. His vision was spinning, and he lost control of his body again. He was flipped over by Ji Xiaoxiao, and then grabbed and beaten left and right. The god of theft was numb. A moment later, Ji Xiaoxiao sat on the chest of the god of thief and said, "If you don't want to play, you should have said so earlier. I won't force you." The god of theft was speechless. "Didn't you say that before? You said that if I don't hide, you'll kill me. Is there?" Ji Xiaoxiao thought for a moment and said, "Forget it, just take it that I said it well, it's time to talk about serious matters. Let me ask you, what's your name?" The god of thief's voice became low, "I am the supreme god of thief." Ji Xiaoxiao slapped him with her iron palm. Ask your name. More Robert. Chapter 216, Chapter 216, Time Steal, 1. Chapter 216, Time Steal, 1. The god of thief was called More Robert. According to him, he was actually just an ordinary human hundreds of years ago. Or rather, an ordinary thief. Later on, as he stole, he gradually became famous. Whoever lost something would blame it on him, so gradually, he became a god. More was the god of thieves, and his believers were naturally thieves? My divine power can allow me to steal all the treasures in this world. More said proudly. Can you really steal anything? Ji Xiaoxiao asked curiously. Come, Ji Xiaoxiao said excitedly. You stole my lifespan. Let me experience what the time steal is. More's expression froze. I can't steal it. Why? Aren't you the god of thief? More's face turned red. I don't have enough divine power. Moreover, how could one steal one's lifespan? It's simply wishful thinking. Good dishes. The god of the Ji Xiaoxiao's face was full of disdain as she said, You're weak and weak. You're a god, but you can't even beat me. I'm the god of theft, not the god of battle, More argued. I don't have a combat clergy to begin with. My divine power is used for theft. Noob god. More was speechless. Why did you steal my great Xiao's warrior sage statue? Ji Xiaoxiao asked again. Those statues. Ji Xiaoxiao raised her hand and slapped him. More covered his face, his lips moving as he silently cursed. Then, he continued, those holy images contain extremely pure and powerful faith. Although it is slightly different from the power of faith, after a simple transformation, it can be absorbed as ownerless power of faith, and its quality is comparable to that of fanatics. As More explained, Xiaoxiao gradually understood. This guy was a fringe god. Because of the special nature of his priesthood, he did not have many believers. Who would like to be a thief? Moreover, even if there were really people who liked to be thieves, how devout could they be? Therefore, More's divine domain was very small and his divine power was very weak. Among the gods in this world, he was considered the weakest and had almost no combat power. Even his believers didn't think that he was good at fighting. What the thief wanted was to sneak in silently and steal the treasure elegantly. Kai Wushuan killed all the guards and stole the treasure openly. What kind of thief was that? That was a mountain bandit, a bandit. And by chance, More discovered another world, which was the world where the great Xia was located. The divinity of the god of thief made More unable to resist stealing something. That was something that his priesthood was responsible for, and also what his believers wanted him to do. Therefore, he had actually been to the 8 treasures stronghold a long time ago. However, for some reason, his divine power would be weakened in the other world. Moreover, the further away he was from the 8 treasures stronghold, the stronger the feeling of weakening. If I personally descend, my divine power will be weakened. Yes, but recently, the feeling of being weakened has become weaker and weaker. Hearing this, Ji Xiaoxiao rubbed her chin. When a new mystic realm descended, there would be a process of law fusion. The more different the rules of a mystic realm were from the main world, the longer the process of descending would be. In the first secret realm 1,000 years ago, the preparation work before the descent had lasted for about 5 years. The first secret realm in history had descended in the year 2025, but in reality, clues had already appeared at the end of the year 19. Moore felt that the weakening feeling was getting weaker and weaker, which meant that it would not be long before the mystic realm completely descended. Moore had descended earlier. After sensing that his divinity and divine power had been weakened, he did not run back immediately. Instead, he continued to explore. As the god of thieves, Moore was a god among thieves? It would be outrageous if he did not steal something when he discovered another world. Thus, he discovered the holy image. He realized that the strong martial will and protective will on the statue could be transformed into pure power of faith without an owner, so he was extremely excited. The holy elephant was equivalent to an experience medicine for a god of faith like him. Therefore, he wanted to steal the holy ivory back, but a holy ivory weighed at least several thousand pounds. How could he, the god of stealing, who only knew how to sneak in silently and escape without being hindered, carry it? Thus, he visited his believers in a dream and found a strong one, which was Kali. And Josie was Kali's partner. Because of that dream, the two of them became Moore's fanatics and stole the holy image for him. Speaking of which, Ji Xiao thought for a moment. This is your divine domain. You should have been here all along. Why did Kali pray for so long before you came out? No, you seem to have come out of Kali's body. You've been hiding in Kali's body all this time. Kali may be strong, but he can't lift the holy image. Also, Moore said honestly, because there are too few believers, and my divinity is too low, I can't bestow divine spells on my believers at all. So you possessed me. Ji Xiao suddenly understood. I see. The strong Kali, with your strength and Josie's help, was able to move the statue. Stealing a holy statue, a family of 3 would go to war. Tisk tisk, you have once again refreshed my understanding of God. I thought that gods were omnipotent. Theory, skill, Moore was a little embarrassed. God's power comes from the faith of his believers. If I have enough believers, and their faith is firm enough, and they firmly believe that I'm omnipotent, then I'm omnipotent. For this reason, I came up with a long prayer, wanting the believers to believe that I was very strong, so as to strengthen their own abilities, but they did not believe me. Ji Xiao laughed. Moer's face was as black as the bottom of a pot as he laughed. Ji Xiao finally stopped and said, then tell me more about what this world is like. How are the levels of gods divided? What are the human forces like? I can tell you, but before that, can I ask you a question? Are you the god of that world? Moore asked carefully. Do I look like a god to you? I don't know. I don't feel any traces of divine power on you, but you're so strong. I am not a god. With my strength, how can I be a god? Ji Xiao said happily. What? Moore was stunned. With your strength, you can't even become a god in that world. First of all, before your world descended, there was no such thing as believing in gods. Secondly, with my current strength, I'm not really a strong person in my world. At least, if I die now, I won't even be able to form a statue. Ji Xiao laughed. If one wanted to condense a saint statue, the starting point was the Starjade realm. Hiss dash. Moore gasped. There are many people as strong as you, or even stronger than you, in that world. Then the future war. You want to invade our world? Ji Xiao narrowed her eyes. It's not me. Moore waved his hands and said hurriedly, it's not me. It's another god. Chapter 217, Chapter 217, There's no loss anyway. Chapter 217, There's no loss anyway. Ji Xiao gradually frowned as she listened to Moore. This mystical realm was a typical Western fantasy mystical realm. There were mages, swordsmen, and gods of faith. The arcane realm was very large, and the powerful gods were high above. They relied on divine spells and divine power to control several large empires. For the sake of their faith, the empires had been fighting for years. It seemed that in the minds of the gods, war was the best way to show miracles. Through war, the gods used the most direct way to make their strength deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. They also fought for believers through war. Therefore, once the gods found out about the news of the other world, they would definitely start a war. Land, resources, ownerless believers, all these could make them go crazy. You're also participating in the war? Ji Xiao asked curiously. No, no, no. Moore waved his hand. Why would I join a war? I have less than 300 believers. If I were to really go to the battlefield, those high-level mages would be able to kill me with a fireball. You're so weak. Ji Xiao was shocked. Moore straightened his neck and said unhappily, how can this be called weak? The magic that the mages mastered came from a few elemental gods that had existed since ancient times. They were extremely powerful. Hundreds of years ago, a genius mage had subdued several elemental gods and ascended to the position of archmage. The power of his magic had become even more terrifying. Some powerful spells were even as powerful as divine spells. That was why it wasn't that I was weak. It was just that those spells that were cast by praising the archmage's name could borrow the power of the elemental gods and archmages. To a certain extent, those weren't spells, but divine spells that could be mastered through practice. How many believers did they have? How many believers do I have? A confrontation between a god's divine persona and divine power. How can I be weak? The more Moore spoke, the more aggrieved he became. Then, he started to say something difficult to understand, such as the god of thief is essentially just a thief. It's normal for thieves to have no magic resistance, or the difference in the number of believers is there. If Moore hadn't been pressed to the ground by Ji Xiaoxiao, he would have started to wipe his tears as he spoke. Ji Xiaoxiao thought for a long time and said, I can help you develop believers and make you stronger. According to Moore's description, although Ji Xiaoxiao was confident in the strength of Great Xia, those powerful gods were not easy to deal with. This was especially true for gods who could cast divine spells on their believers. The more powerful a god was, the more ridiculous the divine spells they would bestow on their believers. There were even gods who could cast the undead divine spell on their believers. It wasn't that they weren't immortal, but they were extremely difficult to kill. Once this mystic realm started a full-scale war with Great Xia, it wouldn't be a joke. Those gods were high and mighty, and everything they did was for the sake of faith. When they were in the mystic realm, there would be a war every 3 to 5 days. If they really discovered the existence of Great Xia, the consequences would be unimaginable. There were powerful martial artists in Great Xia and even a large number of experts in the starry sky, but there was an upper limit to the mystic realm. With the secret realm in hand, they could attack or defend. The experts of Great Xia could not enter and could only be beaten passively. At that time, who knew how many people would die? Taking a step back, even if they did not start a full-scale war, the countless holy statues on the border would definitely suffer. Therefore, Ji Xiaoxiao planned to support Moore and make him stronger, so that the gods of the secret realm would fight each other. How can you help me? Although you're very strong, Moore said helplessly, that's only because I'm not good at fighting. As far as I know, some gods who have clergy in fighting are much stronger than you. Who said I wanted to help you fight? To put it bluntly, isn't becoming stronger the same as preaching? Ji Xiaoxiao asked in surprise. Missionary now, other than the Holy Church of Light and the Church of the Dark, no other sects are allowed to exist. Sigh, we all think of ways. Let's give it a try. At most, we'll die. You won't lose anything, right? Moore was dumbfounded. At worst, it's just death and no loss could be put in the same sentence. 8 Treasures Stronghold. Jiruo patted his butt and stood up. Although Josie was tight-lipped, Jiruo still got the information he wanted. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Jiruo had a general understanding of the situation in the new mystery land. How was it? Did you get anything out of it? Gu Shaoxian asked curiously. How is that possible? I don't even understand what she's saying. Jiruo shrugged. Jiruo could tell him the information he had just obtained, but there was no need to tell Gu Shaoxian. This guy wasn't in the establishment. He just happened to be sealed in the 8 Treasures stronghold. It didn't matter whether he knew or not. Moreover, Gu Shaoxian's passion towards death made Jiruo uncomfortable. Death should be heavier. Gu Shaoxian smiled and said, You're right. I thought you could understand when I saw you chatting so happily with her. I really don't understand. Jiruo said, I was just bored and came over to ask. I didn't get anything out of it and I don't understand anything. It was close to noon when a strong wind suddenly blew and a loud noise came from the sky. A military transport plane hovered above the 8 Treasures stronghold. The people responsible for escorting Josie had arrived. Little Ruo, why are you here? Didn't you go to university? Jiruo knew the person in charge of the escort this time. He had met him when he was planning the new martial examination system. His name was Zhang Wenjia, and he was from the General Affairs Division. Uncle Zhang, long time no see. I've already graduated. Jiruo scratched his head. You graduated? Zhang Wenjia was surprised. How long has it been? The first martial arts school was born because of dying fantasy, and its actual location was inside Chenzai's body. The powerful body of this martial artist who had surpassed the 4 realms of martial arts was the best protection for the students. Because of this, it was not easy for the first martial arts school to communicate with the outside world. Moreover, Chenzai was focused on education. There was no need for everyone to know that a student had graduated. My situation is a little special. Jiruo didn't linger on this topic. He pulled Zhang Wenjia aside and whispered, Uncle Zhang, As you know, I'm a little talented in language. I've already helped you ask the thief about the general situation. This is the general situation. Jiruo's performance in the Myriad Beast Mountain was no secret. Almost all of the higher UPS knew that Jiruo had a special talent for languages. If it wasn't for the fact that Jiruo's talent was unique to him, he wouldn't have needed to go to university. He would have long been dragged to help translate the foreign languages of the demon creatures. Zhang Wenji's expression gradually turned solemn. I understand. Little Ruo, you've been a great help again. By the way, why don't you come back with me to help compile the language? Jiruo smiled and refused. I don't think so. Uncle Zhang, you know that I can listen and talk, but I really can't participate in the compilation of the system. Alright, Uncle Zhang, I won't force you. The situation is urgent, so I'll bring the thief back first. Okay, goodbye, Uncle Zhang. Chapter 218, Chapter 218, White Cat Descends. Chapter 218, White Cat Descends. The common language could only allow Jiruo to communicate with the target without any obstacles. It was a compiled language that could be used as a system, but it was not very effective. Many demons did not even have a systematic language. Moreover, even demons of the same species had different habits when speaking. For example, as a wind god falcon, Ondijinglan was used to calling out once in the same sentence, but other wind god falcons might be used to calling out twice. Common language wasn't for Jiruo to understand, but for Jiruo to understand. Therefore, the compilation of the new language didn't make much of a difference. Jiruo, you know quite a lot of people. As he watched the escort team leave, Gu Shaoxian said emotionally, can you help me promote my business to your friends? If we really succeed, we'll split the money equally. Thank you, but I won't consider it. Jiruo carried Luo Qian and left. Sorry, excuse me for a moment. I have to go to the toilet. Gu Shaoxian chuckled. You really don't understand. Although he did not understand what Jiruo and Xiaoxi were saying earlier, Gu Shaoxian was not blind. He saw the change in Josie's expression very clearly. Therefore, he suspected that Jiruo had already understood. Gu Shaoxian turned around and glanced at the remaining 5 holy statues in the center of the stockade. He was deep in thought as he muttered to himself, will there be such rules in this mythical realm? Then, Gu Shaoxian moved and quietly chased after Jiruo. Although he was carrying a coffin that weighed 1,000 pounds, his footsteps were still light and agile. He moved like a ghost, not even leaving a single footprint. Rosie, I think I know why your sister appeared that day. In the forest, Jiruo said to Luo Qian with a serious face, at that time, she probably didn't want to show her spirit. Rosie tilted her head and thought for a moment. Meow, she said. Yes, my sister said she didn't know what happened. Is she still telling you in your dreams? Meow dash, not now. Sister chatted with me for a long time before. Maybe she's tired. The white cat angrily punched Rosie's head. Is she tired? No. It was obvious that she had chatted with Rosie for too long in the dream and had consumed all the happiness stored in Rosie's red scarf. That was why she could not contact Rosie for the time being. Otherwise, when Luo Qian woke up and told Jiruo that she also wanted a red scarf, she would have scolded Luo Qian in her dreams. Luo Qian, do you want to see your sister again? Jiruo asked seriously. Meow dash, 0 of course. Little Ruo, didn't Luo Qian's sister die? Chen Mo said excitedly. How? Are you going to take us to hell? Alright, alright. I haven't died yet. Jiruo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Uncle Chen Mo, what are you thinking about? What do you mean by dead? I haven't lived enough. Then how? I want to try something. Jiruo said, I'm not sure if my idea is right, but if it works, Luo Qian's sister should be able to come back to life. Rosie's eyes widened. Then can we still eat in the future? Jiruo was stunned for a moment before she thought carefully and said, when the time comes, you can personally ask me if I can eat. Then, under the white cat's frightened eyes, Jiruo solemnly took out incense sticks and paper money, copied the situation that day, and seriously began to worship the white cat. No, I can't. No. I don't want to become a monster. The white cat pounced on her in a panic, but she missed. She could not affect reality now. In the distance, Gu Shaoxian hid in the grass and peeked at Jiruo from afar. His intuition told him that Jiruo must have learned something from Jiaoxi, but Gu Shaoxian was not sure what it was exactly. However, he felt that Jiruo's sudden visit to the forest was definitely not to use the toilet as he had said, although there were indeed no proper toilets in the 8 treasures stronghold. As expected, Gu Shaoxian saw Jiruo take out some jaw sticks and paper money. He didn't get too close, worried that Jiruo would find him, so he didn't hear what Jiruo had said. As Jiruo, Luo Jian, and Chen Mo paid their respects seriously, an inexplicable power of faith quietly gathered on the white cat in its spirit form. In the smoke, a faint shadow of a cat slowly appeared. Gu Shaoxuan's eyes widened, and his pupils trembled. Death worship knew it. A mystic realm with such laws will descend sooner or later. I knew it. He was very excited, but he was still very rational and did not rush out directly. Instead, he chose to leave quietly. For some news, it was enough to confirm it. This mystic realm must successfully descend. Stinky Rosie. Bad Rosie. What did you promise me back then? Ah. The white cat's angry voice turned from weak to strong. Perhaps because this was the 8 treasures stronghold, which was the closest to the mystery land, it was more affected by the rules of the mystery land. The strong belief quickly summoned the white cat's spirit body, and it didn't disappear as quickly as before. At this moment, Jiruo was looking at the white cat that they had worshipped and ravaged Luo Jian in astonishment. Rosie's little face was kneaded into various shapes by the angry white cat. She whimpered, "Meow. Master, save me. Sister wants to kill me." "You still dare to say that?" The white cat was even angrier. "How did you tell Master to be a traitor? What did you say?" "What? I've become a monster. It's all your fault, it's all your fault." Ah. This Jiruo was surprised. "Rosie's sister, may I ask, who is your master?" The white cat's body stiffened. He stopped ravaging Luo Jian and slowly turned around. He squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying and said, "Hello, Master. I'm Rosie's sister. Nice to meet you. Please take care of me." Jiruo pointed at herself. The young man was very surprised. He knew very well that he had never signed a contract with the white cat. Why did the other party call him Master? And he was so familiar with it. "That's right, Master." The white cat was a little sad. She had been scared for a few days, but she had finally become a monster. Now that things had come to this, it was useless for her to be afraid. Things had already changed. The white cat took a deep breath and said, "Master, first of all, I want to apologize to you. I didn't do it on purpose. I was just too angry at that time." The more Jiruo listened, the more confused he became. "That matter? What was it? No, wait a moment. Why do you call me Master?" Jiruo rubbed his forehead. "Also, what was that matter? Master, you don't know." She carefully recalled what she had seen and heard when she was with Jiruo in her heroic spirit state. It seemed that there was also the news that Luo Jian usually read online. It seemed that it really didn't involve the big bad thing that she had done. Thinking of this, the white cat heaved a sigh of relief. "Master, actually, Rosie and I." The white cat began to tell the story of her and Rosie. Jiruo's eyes widened. Chapter 219, Chapter 219, Demon Immortal, 1. Chapter 219, Demon Immortal, 1. The white cat didn't hide anything and told him everything about himself and Luo Jian. Jiruo's eyes widened. The invisible eye in his eyes could hide his thoughts. Jiruo didn't deliberately hide them, so his thoughts were revealed. The left eye was shocked. The right eye said, "This works too." The subtitles rolled. Chen Mo was greatly intrigued. He condensed a dialogue box above Jiruo's head and typed 666 crazily. "That's about it?" The white cat looked at Jiruo carefully. "Master, I'm telling the truth. You can ask Rosie if you don't believe me." Rosie nodded repeatedly and said, "Meow dash, sister is telling the truth. You said you shared a body with Luo Jian." Jiruo was still in disbelief. Later, because of the red scarf, she was inexplicably pulled out of the box. "Were you also the one who helped Rosie switch her talent back at the Myriad Beast Mountain? How good were you when you weren't injured?" "According to what you humans say, Master, I'm a 4-star. The white cat said honestly. He had long known that he had picked up a treasure by adopting Rosie, but he did not expect this treasure to be so big. A seriously injured 4-star demon. If the white cat recovered, then. "So, you actually knew me a long time ago. However, because he was pulled out by the red scarf and became the heroic spirit that protected Rosie, he could not affect reality when Rosie was not in danger, right?" Jiruo was deep in thought. He finally knew where Rosie's demon had gone. "So it's living?" "No, the demon had never died." Jiruo asked in confusion, "You said that you were able to communicate with Rosie through dreams. Then why didn't you tell Rosie to let me help her take off her red scarf? The heroic spirit state could not affect reality. It should be very boring, right? It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned this, but the white cat was furious. "Master, I told her to tell you." However, she had clearly agreed to it in her dream, but when she woke up, she actually spoke nonsense. "It's fine now, the white cat said angrily. I can influence reality, but I'm not completely a demon anymore. Because of some reasons that even I don't know myself, I've become something that even I don't know what it is. Rosie, you're too much. Rosie shrunk her neck. Meow dash, sister, you can't blame me for this. We talked for so long in the dream. How could I remember what you said at the beginning? The white cat is more angry, the meaning of the word is strange, the meaning of the word is strange. Who insisted on talking to me about our childhood? Rosie trembled. Meow, she said. But I'm curious, I don't have any memories of this. The white cat was burning with anger. Then, he sighed and said, forget it. It's useless to blame you now. I've already changed Sai, I've become a monster. She looked at Jiruo and said worriedly, Master, will you despise me? I won't dislike it. If a 4-star demon at its peak wanted to acknowledge him as its master, Jiruo would only reject it if his brain was caught in a door. No, Jiruo now had the indestructible diamond divine art, so ordinary doors really couldn't pinch his head. However, are you sure you want to acknowledge me as your master? Rosie is the only one who signed a contract with me, Jiruo asked curiously. And you're a 4-star. I'm only a 2-star now. Master, it's good that you don't despise me. The white cat said happily, I've been following Rosie around for a while now. I've been watching you bring her around to eat, drink, and have fun. I've long been envious. I can also sign a contract with you. If you don't mind, I won't object. Jiruo smiled. In fact, Jiruo was also curious. The white cat said that she was no longer a complete demon, but a monster that even she herself did not know. Jiruo also wanted to know what the white cat had become. After signing the contract, Jiruo would be able to check the white cat's details through the system teacher. What's your name? I don't have a name. No name. Rosie has a name, why don't you? Jiruo was stunned. Rosie was born with her name. And when I was roaming the myriad beast mountain alone, no one gave me a name, so I naturally didn't have a name. Rosie was born with it? Jiruo looked at the small great hungry demon in surprise. Master, you can give me a name, the white cat continued. That works too. How old are you this year? Jiruo asked after some thought. According to your human calculation, I am 26 years old this year. In 26 years, she had become a 4-star demon by herself. Luo Qian's sister was ridiculously talented. There's no hurry with the name. How about I call you Dubai for the time being? The white cat nodded, you can listen to me, but you can't listen to me. Then, Dubai, come and sign the contract. I'm asking you one last time. Do you want to go back on your word? Jiruo asked. After signing the contract, he could not go back on his word. I've thought it through very clearly, the white cat said solemnly. By signing a contract with Jiruo, one would be able to obtain the right to live a normal life in the human world. This was a great temptation for this great cat demon who had lived alone in Myriad Beast Mountain for 26 years and was in a precarious situation. Moreover, Jiruo also provided food and accommodation. A moment later, the master-servant contract was signed. Jiruo heaved a sigh of relief. There were conditions to signing the contract. Firstly, the contracting party could not be a human. Secondly, the difference in strength between the two parties could not be too great. Thirdly, the other party could not have too strong a resistance mentality. If any of these 3 conditions were missing, the contract would not be successful. Jiruo was originally worried that this 4-star cat demon would not be able to sign a contract with him. From the looks of it, it might be because of Rosie, or because she was unusually cooperative, or because she had not recovered from her serious injuries. In short, there were no accidents during the signing of the contract. After signing the contract, Jiruo eagerly opened the white cat's pet details. Name, Dubai, temporary, race, demon immortal type, incense god divine position, none. Divine title, none. Remark, is it a sister control? I think so. Jiruo's breathing quickened. Demon immortal. This was the turn into a monster. If this was a monster, then Jiruo wanted to change too. Also, the type was indeed incense god. Jiruo was right. The white cat's sudden appearance was because it was near the border and was affected by the rules of the new arcane realm. Of course, under normal circumstances, it should not be so easy to worship the god of incense flames. But was that normal? Putting aside the lineup of worshippers, the white cat's heroic spirit state at that time was probably one of the reasons. There was also. Jiruo looked at the mutated red scarf on Luo Qian's neck, who was listening to the white cat's lecture with a dejected expression. That red scarf had long since become Luo Qian's exclusive. Even Jiruo did not know what special effects this mutated red scarf had. At that time, this special red scarf probably contributed to Suddenly, a small blood-red vortex suddenly appeared in front of Jiruo. A small golden head poked out of the vortex. Old thing, there's something I need to discuss with you. Chapter 220, Chapter 220, Sleeping in the Secret Realm, 1. Chapter 220, Sleeping in the Secret Realm, 1. Ji Xiaoxiao grabbed Moore's collar and pressed him to the ground. I originally wanted to support him over there and let him gradually become stronger so that he could fight with the other gods. However, this fellow was once a human hundreds of years ago, and there was also a god of contract in charge of contracts in the mythical realm. I don't know if the former will have any effect, but the latter. Once the contract is signed, the god of contract will definitely sense it. At that time, all information will be exposed, and those gods will push the secret plane to descend without caring about anything. Then, they will start a war and fight for believers. If we can't sign the contract, my plan won't work. Ji Xiaoxiao said seriously. Vision has also confirmed this point. The success rate of this plan is 0. We can't support him. That's no different from supporting the enemy. Little thing, your judgment is correct. He looked at Moore, who was pinned to the ground by Ji Xiaoxiao's collar, and said, although the mystic realm hasn't completely descended, the gods over there are already able to come over. If it weren't for the fact that this guy wanted to monopolize the world and didn't publicize the existence of the foreign world, we would have been caught off guard by the gods over there. In order to prevent the news from leaking, kill him. Moore looked at Jiruo, who looked exactly like Ji Xiaoxiao but had a similar build to himself. He lay on the ground, trembling. Ji Xiaoxiao had already beaten him into a corner. He could not imagine how strong Jiruo was. They wanted to kill him. No, Ji Xiaoxiao shook her head slightly. I've already tried. Maybe it's because he's a god. Although he's pitifully weak, no matter what I did, I couldn't kill him. That's why I came back to ask for your opinion. Should we report this matter? Don't kill me, don't kill me. I promise I won't leak any information about this world, Moore quickly said. The passage is a two-way passage. I can help you guard the passage on the other side. It won't be easy for you to kill me. I'm a god. As long as there are believers who believe in my existence, I won't really die. What is this guy talking about? Chen Mo was puzzled. Can't speak human language? Poor thing, I just can't write. Jiruo and Ji Xiaoxiao looked at each other. He couldn't use a contract to bind it, and it was very difficult to kill. It was a little difficult. A simple pinky agreement was not enough. That kind of agreement would only passively increase the other party's favorability towards him. Although violating the agreement might result in punishment, based on his understanding of the system teacher, he could not do so. The penalty for breaching the contract was most likely to be hanging, and the agreed time of effect should be 100 years. Even if he just hung himself, he wouldn't be able to kill Moore. Divine spark. I remember now. You tore off a small part of my divinity last night, Moore suddenly shouted. I don't want that part anymore. I can share the divine position with you. This way, we will all be the god of thief, and you can trust me. Divine sparks. Jiruo thought for a moment and took out the black crystals from the Wanxiang mirror. You mean this? Yes. As long as you absorb it, you can become the god of thieves like me, enjoy endless lifespan and the faith of your believers like me. Jiruo was slightly moved. Moore was overjoyed to see this, but he was sneering in his heart. He didn't lie. After absorbing and refining his divinity, he could indeed become the god of thief like him. However, he was weak in the first place. It would take an extremely long time for him to cultivate a complete divine persona from a small divine persona fragment. Moreover, more than 90% of the stolen divinities were with him. Once Jiruo and Ji Xiaoxiao chose to refine them, they would become his subordinate gods, although their divine power was pitifully weak and they could hardly be called gods. But then, he would be able to control the life and death of Jiruo and Ji Xiaoxiao. It does sound very tempting. But only you are familiar with this thing. Who knows if you have poisoned your own divinity? Jiruo pondered for a moment. Moore slowly typed out a question mark. Could this thing poison the inside? How old are you? Ji Xiaoxiao asked. Moore said proudly, 17 years old. Even now, there are still no signs of aging. Ji Xiaoxiao raised her hand and slapped him. You must be the god of bragging. Moore was stunned. Was 400 years old not enough? How many people could live for more than 400 years? Take us to the place where you first descended, Jiruo said. What are you doing? Ji Xiaoxiao slapped him again. Lead the way. Moments later, Moer led Jiruo and Ji Xiaoxiao to a hidden cave. Calling it a cave might not be too appropriate, because this cave only looked like a prototype of the entrance. The inside was not very deep, only about 20 centimeters. I came out from here before. The location behind is next to my divine territory. Moore said honestly. Jiruo thought for a moment, then picked up Moore and slammed into the shallow hole. There was a soft sound like the bursting of a soap bubble, and Moore's body pierced through the stone wall, disappearing along with a small section of Jiruo's arm. The embryonic form of the passageway has already appeared. Jiruo murmured to herself as she felt the slight repulsion from her arm. Then, he activated the indestructible diamond divine art, and the extremely hard protective dipper energy covered his body. Jiruo brought an elder, Chen Mo, and a child into it. In the eternal night divine territory, the sense of spatial rejection became stronger, but it was still bearable. Jiruo roughly estimated that even if he did nothing, he would be expelled from this mystic realm in 3 days at most. After all, this secret realm had not fully descended. Ji Xiaoxiao was in a special state and was not a normal creature. She could be ignored, but Jiruo could not. This is the divine realm. The passage connects directly to your domain. You're lucky. The divine domain is a characteristic of us gods, Moore hurriedly said. It can't be destroyed. If I hadn't suddenly noticed a crack in my divine domain, I wouldn't have discovered the other world. You can't hurt me. Otherwise, if anything happens to me, my divine domain will definitely become unstable. At that time, the information of the other world will. Don't worry, we won't hurt you. Jiruo smiled as he pulled out a blanket and wrapped it around the dumbfounded Moore. Have a good sleep. We don't need you to do anything. Sleep. Moore was puzzled, but before he could ask, a strong sense of sleepiness surged like a wave. It was the help of Rosie's premium sleep. An indescribable sense of pleasure and comfort welled up in his heart. Moore was wrapped in a blanket by Jiruo and fell asleep. Before he breaks the seal, we don't have to worry about him continuing to cause trouble. Other than lifting the blanket, the only way to break the seal was to rely on one's strong willpower to get out. Although Moore was a god, he was in fact just a thief with a divine persona. How strong could a thief have? Could a thief not stay in bed? Even the passage to the mystic realm has been sealed. Ji Xiaoxiao said. I think so too. Jiruo nodded. Then, they tied Moore together with the blanket with a rope and buried him underground to ensure that Moore would not kick the blanket when he slept. After that, Jiruo went through the secret passage again, took out a new quilt, and nailed it to the wall. A martial artist looked at the data displayed on a certain instrument and widened his eyes. Captain. Captain. Something big has happened. Captain, look at the activity level of this mythical realm. This is. The captain was shocked. This device was a mystic realm sensor device developed by Great Xia. The data on it represented the activity of the mystic realm. When the activity level was full, it would be the time when the secret realm completely descended. Normally, the activity of the secret plane would only increase and not decrease. But at this moment at the beginning, the mythical realm's activity level, which had already reached 60%, was still slowly rising as usual. However, when the activity level rose to 63%, it actually began to slowly fall again. The martial artist stationed there stared intently at the data on the instrument. This was a situation that had never happened before. Half an hour later, the data fell back to 57%, and then began to rise again. 63, 57, 63, 57. The cycle repeated itself, and the data strangely stabilized. The martial artists stationed there were all stunned. Could it be that the secret realm is asleep? Hu Yonglin asked hesitantly. She fell asleep? How can a secret realm sleep? But the magnitude of the change in the data really looks like snoring. Chapter 221, Chapter 221, Returning to Class. Chapter 221, Returning to Class. There's a mountain behind us, a green dragon on the left, a white tiger on the right, and a mountain in front of us. The water is winding. Gu Shaoxian carried the black metal coffin and found a good place without attracting anyone's attention. I didn't expect the 8 treasures stronghold to have such a good place, and it hasn't been used by the predecessors. Gu Shaoxian sighed, then shook his head and laughed. What am I thinking? These things have long become feudal superstitions. No one believes in this anymore, else just nice for me. He found a shady spot and took down the black coffin on his back. The metal coffin that weighed over 1,000 pounds was as light as a feather in his hand. It did not make a sound when it landed on the ground. Then, he took out some incense, candles, paper money, and some other messy things that he had already prepared. Before long, Gu Shaoxian erected a simple spiritual altar beside the black coffin. It's about to begin. Gu Shaoxian muttered to himself solemnly. He began to pay his respects to the black coffin. Every movement and even every eulogy seemed to have been practiced countless times. Gu Shaoxian was extremely familiar with it. Compared to Jiruo's previous worship, it was more professional. His faith was also purer and stronger. However, nothing happened. Why is there no reaction? Could it be that there's a problem with the way of paying respects? Gu Shaoxian was a little puzzled. After thinking about it, Gu Shaoxian began to try other ways of worshipping. He tried 7 different ways of worshipping. As an outstanding funeral shopkeeper, Gu Shaoxian was best at these things. But without exception, they all failed. What went wrong? Gu Shaoxian sighed and gently lifted the heavy coffin lid, staring at the dead in the coffin. Inside the coffin lay a dried golden corpse that was about 1.6 meters tall. It was shriveled, twisted, and had a hideous expression. Or is it that you don't want to see me? Meow dash, master, can you let me eat this? Luo Qian stared at the divine fragments of the god of thief in Ji Ruo's hand. Her eyes were green and she was drooling. Meow dash, one want to eat it? You little gluttonous cat, why do you want to eat everything? It was obvious that this thing was not normal food. What if he got a stomachache? Meow dash, one am not afraid of getting a stomachache. Ji Ruo knocked Luo Qian on the head and said, "Ls this the main point." Rosie covered her head in grievance. Then, she looked at the white cat. Rosie sniffed and said with a look of desire, "Meow dash, sister, you smell so good too. Can I have a bite?" Even Ji Ruo was shocked. Why did this little guy suddenly become so greedy? Good fellow, he even wanted to bite his own sister. You can't satisfy yourself by eating your sister's food in front of your sister. Meow, sister, please, I feel that if you let me take a bite, I can evolve again. Looking at Luo Qian's coquettish appearance, the white cat hesitated for a moment and slowly stretched out his claws, saying, "Then you can't take too big a bite." This wasn't how he doted on his sister. In the end, Rosie didn't really bite the white cat. Ji Ruo stopped him for one reason, and for another, the incense that kept the white cat's body alive seemed to have been exhausted. The white cat was forced to disappear. He ignored Rosie's wails. For the sake of this little girl's health, before he fully understood the effects and various characteristics of the divine persona, Ji Ruo wouldn't let Rosie eat it indiscriminately. He put away the divine persona fragment and continued to deal with the passage to the secret plane. Ji Xiaoxiao looked at Luo Qian, who was still begging, and thought. After sealing the passage to the secret realm with nails and quilts, Ji Ruo still felt that it was not safe. He found wet soil to paste the entire mountain wall and dried it with iron palm before returning to the 8 treasures stronghold. In the stockade, the villagers were all gathered together. A garrison martial artist and the village chief stood in the middle of the crowd, talking about something. Ji Ruo curiously went over and poked Hu Yonglin, who was guarding the periphery, and asked, "Brother Hu, what's going on? Did something happen again?" "Jiruo, where did you go?" "I found a place to go to the toilet and familiarized myself with the situation around the village." Hu Yonglin didn't think too much about it and whispered, "The thief has been caught, but the villagers still have to live." Therefore, after consulting the higher UPS, the 8 treasures stronghold was ready to be unsealed. "You're from the first martial arts school, so you should know that the descent of the mystic realm will cause some changes to the demons around the descent location. Now, our captain is instructing the villagers to not leave the village too far before we clear out the mutated demons in the surroundings even if they're unsealed." The descent of the secret realm, according to its special nature, the time of descent was long and short. During the process of descending, due to the fusion of laws, the mystic realm would release a strange power. This power could be harmful to human bodies. For example, the first descent of the mystic realm 1,000 years ago was like a plague to humans. Of course, this power could also be harmful to demons. However, most of the time, this power was beneficial to demons. In addition, after humans practiced martial arts, their bodies gradually adapted to spiritual energy. That kind of power would no longer cause much harm to the human body. Of course, there were not many benefits. In other words, the existence of that power did not affect humans at all. However, most demons might become stronger or even evolve because of this power. Therefore, under normal circumstances, there would be many strengthened demons gathering at the location where the secret realm descended. When the secret realm completely descended, that power would be completely released in an extremely short period of time, causing the demons to become even more violent and trigger a beast tide. Therefore, he couldn't ignore it. This is indeed a problem. "Big brother Hu, I'll help too." Ji Ruo nodded. "Forget about helping. It's not that I don't believe in your strength," Hu Yonglin said with a smile. "You just came out of school, so you probably haven't come into contact with this kind of strengthened demon, right? It's good that you have this intention. If anything happens to you during the battle with the strengthened demon beasts, it won't be good. Actually, I'm not weak either. This isn't a matter of weakness, but experience. Demons strengthened by the power of the secret realm may obtain some special abilities, which are different from ordinary demons," Hu Yonglin said seriously. "You don't have any experience in fighting against strengthened demon beasts. It's very dangerous to fight against strengthened demon beasts rashly. If you really want to help. After thinking for a while, Hu Yonglin said, we've all gone out to kill the strengthened demons. There are no teachers in the 8 Treasures Stronghold primary school. If it's possible, can you help us be a substitute teacher for a period of time? After graduating from the first martial arts school, you're still a top student. It shouldn't be difficult for you to be a substitute teacher in primary school, right? Chapter 222, Chapter 222, Just bring them to play. Chapter 222, Just bring them to play. Substitute teacher. Yes, Hu Yonglin smiled and said, don't be nervous. In fact, you don't have to teach them anything too complicated. These children on the border don't have to take the National College Entrance Examination, and they don't have to learn too many cultural classes in primary school. You only need to bring them to practice various basic martial arts, train their muscles, or just bring them to play. The main thing is that these children don't like to learn cultural classes, Nana. I'm not nervous. It's good that you're not nervous. Although you say you're a substitute teacher, you're actually just helping the villagers take care of their children. In a sense, you're equivalent to the bodyguards of those children. I understand. Don't worry, brother Hu. Leave it to me. Hu Yonglin didn't tell Jiruo that the secret realm was suspected to be asleep. In fact, he didn't even tell the villagers of the 8 Treasures Stronghold. No one had come into contact with such a situation before, so they did not know how to explain it. The news had been reported, and the higher UPS said that they would send experts to study it. Hu Yonglin and the others only needed to try their best to eliminate the strengthened demons around the 8 Treasures Stronghold. 8 Treasures Village Primary School. Although it was called a primary school, it was actually just a small yard surrounded by a simple fence. The classroom only had one room. It was a shed, half open. The tables and chairs were tattered, and there wasn't even a blackboard. Everyone, this big brother is called Jiruo. During this period of time, this big brother Jiruo will be leading the students' classes. He's a university student. Greetings to the new teacher. Hello, teacher. Strictly speaking, there were a total of 20 students in the classroom. There were both boys and girls. The oldest was 11 years old, and the youngest looked less than a month old. Some of the children came to school with their younger siblings on their backs. The children's clothes weren't dirty, but they were full of patches. Moreover, they had been washed until they were white, and they didn't fit them well. Jiruo said he wasn't nervous, but when he stood on the podium, he realized that he wasn't calm either. After all, it was his first time. Jiruo, I'll leave these children to you. All right, brother Hu, you can go ahead. Hu Yonglin left the school and went out to kill demons. The oldest child in the class suddenly asked curiously, new teacher, what do you know? Why did you bring a cat with you? Is it used to eat when you're hungry? Meow. Rosie said angrily. Master won't eat me. Jiruo shook his head slightly and said, my surname is Ji. My name is Jiruo, not Xin. Her name was Rosie, and she was the teacher's pet, not food. This student, what's your name? Pet? Can't pets be eaten? Forget it. It was so small and didn't look like it had much meat. It probably wouldn't be full even if it ate all the bones. The child raised his head and said, my name is Niuli. He's the strongest child in the stockade. Rosie was furious and bared her fangs. Meow, meow, meow. Who are you looking down on? Come, come, come. Let's see if I can make you full. Strongest? That's awesome. But Niuli, you have to raise your hand before you ask the teacher a question. Jiruo began to lecture seriously. The students in the class soon fell asleep. Jiruo finally understood why Hu Yonglin said that these children did not like cultural classes. They did not even have textbooks or even books. How could they attend cultural classes? Teacher Ji, it's useless for you to talk about this. Can you teach me something useful? Niuli said casually. Niuli was 11 years old this year and was the oldest child in the class. He was stronger and stronger, so he was naturally the class monitor. Of course, Niuli's class monitor was different from Liang Shixian. The class monitor that this guy understood was only the best fighter in the class. In short, Niuli was the child king of the 8 Treasures Stronghold. Therefore, he was the one who spoke all the time. The other children did not speak much. Then student Niuli, what do you think is useful? Jiruo asked. Martial arts. Niuli said excitedly, we want to learn martial arts. Powerful martial arts. Do you want to learn martial arts directly? Jiruo pondered for a moment. That's fine. But I can't use it in school. These children's bodies had yet to fully develop, so there were not many martial arts that they could practice, and they could not practice too much. But it didn't matter. He could still practice the simplified version of the 24 Tai Chi forms. Teacher, follow me. Niuli jumped over the fence and ran out. Jiruo was stunned for a moment. Was class discipline so casual? Student Niuli. Before Jiruo could finish, Niuli turned around and shouted. Follow me. Instantly, the remaining students in the classroom ran out. It was Jiruo's first time being a teacher, so he subconsciously wanted to do better. But now, it seemed that Jiruo wasn't the only one who didn't suit the style, and the children didn't seem to accept it. Teacher subtle. The village chief was old, so he didn't follow Jiruo to farm or kill demons. He saw Jiruo's embarrassment and said with a smile, I'm sorry. The children here are quite naughty. You don't have to teach too much. Just bring the children to play. We are all rough people, it is useless to learn so many things. It's not useless, but to bring the children to play. Jiruo took a deep breath and smiled. You should have said so earlier. I'm good at playing. The village chief was stunned. Before he could say anything, Jiruo's body flashed and disappeared in a blink of an eye. Before village chief could react, he heard Jiruo's voice behind him. Student Niuli, where do you plan to go? Wow. Teacher, you ran so fast. It's even crackling. It's really amazing. Do you have a fish pond here? Yes. That's good. Lead the way. I'll bring you guys to eat delicious food. Village chief looked at the wind and thunder gradually disappearing and suddenly felt a little confused. Did I say something wrong? A moment later, there was a small reservoir on the southeast side of the 8th Treasure's stronghold. This reservoir was built by the villagers of the 8 Treasure's stronghold. Usually, the irrigation of farmland and daily water came from this reservoir. Of course, when the weather was hot, the children in the village would come here to play with the water. They would play until they were dirty and wet, and then they would go back and be scolded. Are there fish in here? Jiruo asked. The fish inside are very fat. Niuli said. Even though he's quite strong, sometimes I can't even hold him down. Rosie's eyes lit up. Rosie, Rosie. The white cat frantically told Rosie about her dream. Rosie. Rosie. Quick, quick, quick. Bring me out. I want to eat too. Meow dash, no way. Jiruo laughed and said to the children behind him, "LS everyone hungry? It's our first meeting, and I came in a hurry. I didn't prepare any gifts for you, so I'll treat you to fish." Jiruo slapped the water surface. "Everyone, take it. 5 spice. Fish cooking palm." Under the surprised gazes of all the children, a huge fish-shaped palm print with a diameter of 2 meters suddenly crashed into the calm water. The waves surged and exploded, and the fat fish were blown out by the palm print. They were still in the air, but they were already cooked, emitting all kinds of alluring fragrances. Chapter 223, Chapter 223, You even brought a pencil case, _L. Chapter 223, You even brought a pencil case, _L. The iron palm, which had surpassed the level of perfection, was already considered a pure high-level martial technique. Whether it was in terms of special effects or power, it was worthy of the name of a high-level martial artist. This small reservoir was almost blown up by Jiruo's palm. Dozens of fish were still flying in the air, but they were already cooked and had an alluring fragrance. The water that was blown up turned into fish soup. The children were about to reach out to take it. "There's no rush," Jiruo smiled. "We haven't even finished dealing with this." Jiruo took out a small wooden stick and took a deep breath. "Welcome." The mysterious sword move was executed, and one could see a part of the shadow of the Gale sword technique, but it was not the same. Under the control of Jiruo's sword technique, the surging wind actually condensed into an invisible wind plane, lifting all the flying fish meat and fish soup up like a tray of wind. The welcome wind was a sword move that Jiruo had created based on the wind barrier and 100 million points of imagination. This sword move was mainly used for defense. If he could even catch the wind, what else could he not catch? The children were shocked that the grilled fish flew into the air and did not fall for a long time. Rosie looked up, her eyes full of desire. But Jiruo was not done. He suddenly jumped up and swung a wooden stick again. Shi-Chen. This was a pure offensive sword technique that relied on extremely fast sword speed to attack the enemy. The sword speed was so fast that it could even wash away dust, and the margin for error was almost full. Beams of sword chi scattered down, accurately landing on every cooked fish. They cut off the scales, cut open the stomach, cleaned the internal organs of the fish, and shaved off the bones. Then, the welcome barrier split apart, carrying portions of fish soup and cooked fish in front of each child. The wind was actually sword chi. It split the complete sword chi into small trays and allowed it to maintain its shape for a long time without hurting the children nearby. This level of control could be considered terrifying. Jiruo stood still with his sword, smiling. Everyone, eat it while it's hot. Try. Teacher's cooking. The children cheered. Rosie also got a share. Jiruo smiled and asked softly, Uncle Chen Mo, are there any demons hiding in the reservoir? A wisp of black smoke slowly floated up from the reservoir and returned to Jiruo's hair. No, the strongest guy inside was killed by you just now. That's not bad. The children had their fill and lay on the ground to rest for a while before starting the next agenda. Jiruo moved his body a little and changed into his swimming trunks in the blink of an eye. It would be a pity if he didn't go into the water to play in such good weather. Jiruo sent the children home one by one after class. Ji Xiaoxiao passed through the small portal and whispered, everything has been arranged, damn it. Did you take them to play with water? You actually took advantage of my absence. Old man, you're so scheming. I'll bring you there tomorrow. It's not like we're just going to play for a day. You said it. If you dare to go back on your words, see how I'll deal with you. Ji Xiaoxiao said viciously. Don't worry, by the way, when are they coming? I can go out and pick them up. 2 hours later. F***ck. Jiruo quickly ran out of the village. If I don't ask, are you not going to tell me? You scammer. Haha, who told you to trick me first? Ji Xiaoxiao had won a victory. In the forest outside the village, Jiruo carefully made sure that there was no one else around before coming to a hidden corner to wait. Speaking of which, do you still think you're a transmigrator? Ji Xiaoxiao suddenly asked. What do you mean? I can't remember. Forget it if you don't remember. Ji Xiaoxiao chuckled. Jiruo's curiosity was piqued, and she quickly asked, I'm not a transmigrator. What do you mean? Speak clearly. I don't know either. This part of my memory is a little shhh. They're here. Jiruo looked up and saw a blood-red vortex door suddenly appear. Liang Shixian and the others came out of the vortex with big bags on their backs. Liang Shixian called out in a low voice. Jiruo had a camouflage on him, so he couldn't find Jiruo. Strange, according to Ji Xiaoxiao, we should have appeared near Jiruo. Where did this GUV-20? Could there be an accident? Su Dong asked. After all, it's a spatial teleportation. Chu Fei took out her phone, but there was no signal at all. After a while, the signal was full again. He clicked on the short videos app, and the content pushed by the app turned into various videos on the border. It said that the network on the border is not the same as the internal network of Great Xia. Is it true? Liang Shixian thought for a moment and said, LT seems that there are demons outside the country who can turn themselves into electronic signals and invade the network, so forget it, the most important thing now was to find Jiruo. The initial members of the Spicy Hot Dumpling had all arrived. Everyone was on high alert and didn't run away until they found Jiruo. Although Jiruo was curious about Ji Xiaoxiao's words, he knew that this was not the time to talk about it. Therefore, Jiruo dispelled the camouflage effect and popped his head out of the tree crown. Scared. The sudden voice made Su Dong's entire body tremble. He was frightened. Jiruo, can you be more serious? Liang Shixian said angrily. Haha. Jiruo scratched his head and jumped down from the tree. Class monitor, have you prepared the things I asked you to prepare? I'm ready. Liang Shixian said as he gestured for everyone to take down their bags. The bags were filled with all kinds of learning tools, brand new textbooks, and children's clothes and shoes of all size. Headmaster Chen knew that we were coming to look for you, so he specially prepared these for us. It's considered a donation from the first martial arts school. Liang Shixian said, I've already prepared the identification documents for the identical status. I see. Jiruo checked the supplies and was very satisfied. They are quite well prepared, eh? This is. Jiruo suddenly widened his eyes. Liang Shixian and the others' hearts tightened. Su Dong asked carefully, what's wrong, President? Is there a problem? You actually brought this. Jiruo held up a brand new iron pencil case with both hands, his eyes shining. Jiruo, is there a problem with this pencil case? Liang Shixian was puzzled. Principal Chen helped me prepare this. There shouldn't be any problems, right? This is a big problem. What did you find? Liang Shixian asked seriously. Watch carefully. Jiruo said as she held the square pencil case with one hand and raised it above her head. Then, she made a series of movements that looked both cool and cool. Accompanying it was a strange sound effect that kept coming out of Jiruo's mouth. It looked like he was performing some kind of strange ritual. Although everyone did not understand what Jiruo was doing, their expressions became more and more serious. Although Liang Shixian didn't understand what Jiruo was doing, based on his understanding of Jiruo, Liang Shixian suddenly had an ominous feeling. Chapter 224, Chapter 224, Armor Fusion. Chapter 224, Armor Fusion. Jiruo's strange movements and sound effects did not last long, but they successfully roused everyone's emotions. Sudong and the others became more and more nervous. And Jiruo's strange actions had finally reached the final stage. He held the pencil case with a serious expression and drew a semicircle. Then, he placed the pencil case on his waist and growled, "Armor fusion." Clang, 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 clang. Everyone widened their eyes. No, no more. Oh, there's more. As Jiruo spoke, the cosmetic contact lenses in her eyes suddenly changed. Her left eye was armor and her right eye was warrior. As you can see, I have become a powerful armored warrior. They felt as if their feet had contracted a certain project at this moment, and the construction efficiency was extremely high. Liang Shixian was extremely speechless. He slapped his head and said, "Jiruo, she didn't know how to describe the situation." Liang Shixian was annoyed. "Next time you want to play this kind of game, can you tell me in advance? I thought there was really something wrong with these stationery." In the end, nothing happened. "It's really." Jiruo smiled and said nothing. Did nothing really happen? That might not be the case. Congratulations to the host for triggering the function, Torascaranoka is here to fight. Acquired ability, Handsome Transformation. When the host child performs the corresponding transformation action, places an object on his waist, and shouts words such as armor fusion or transformation, the transformation belt can be summoned to transform. The style depends on the transformation material. After transformation, you can obtain a part of the material's characteristic bonus. Remark, I'm just a passing masked knight. Remark, armor fusion. Jiruo was overjoyed. He could have turned into stationer just now, but he held back at the last moment. How could the true identity of the armored warrior be exposed from the start? Mystery was one of the characteristics of the armored warrior or the masked knight. Transformation material. Jiruo gently squeezed the iron pencil case in his hand and muttered, "If I use this transformation, should I be called Station Man or Iron Man?" "Jiruo, what are you mumbling about?" Liang Shixian said, "Stop fooling around. It's getting late. Take us to the village you mentioned first. Tell the villagers first. Otherwise, if we suddenly appear, I'm afraid we'll be treated as stowaways." "All right, everyone follow me. By the way, class monitor, can you give me this pencil case? If you want to take it, then we brought a lot of them this time." Although the spicy hot dough had not been established for a long time, its position in the first martial arts school was very special. The first martial arts school had a new all-purpose building, the inner demon residence. The inner demons of the previous students lived there, whether they wanted to fight, communicate, or learn some life skills, or even fall in love with their inner demons. This doesn't count. In short, the students could do whatever they wanted in the inner demon house. Of course, the prerequisite was that they had to obtain the permission of the inner demon. Therefore, although the mental demon residence had only been built a few days ago, its popularity had already surpassed the original #1 simulated battlefield. Ji Xiaoxiao had given the authority to control the inner demon house to Liang Xiaoxiao, so Spicy Dumpling had a very high status in the school. As a result, the subsequent recruitment of Spicy Dumpling was extremely popular, and it even affected the normal recruitment of other clubs. Liang Shixian had no choice but to raise the bar for joining the club, and the 5 Spicy Club became a legendary club. After that, even the normal learning life of the members of the initial club was affected. Later, the school arranged for individual teachers to teach these initial members. Ji Xiaoxiao simply asked the teachers to tailor a learning plan for the initial members. Liang Shixian and the others would be able to get a period of field practice after completing a stage of their studies. They would be able to come out to find Jiruo through the teleportation device. After learning that Liang Shixian and the others were Jiruo's classmates and also from the first martial arts school, and after verifying their identities, the villagers enthusiastically arranged accommodation for Liang Shixian and the others. It was a good thing for the villagers of the 8 Treasures stronghold that university students were teaching in the countryside and supporting the construction of the border of Great Xia. Stop what? Jiruo, didn't Xiaoxiao say that there were many martial artists stationed there? Why didn't I see any of them? Liang Shixian pulled Jiruo aside and asked curiously. They all went to deal with the strengthened demons around the village. Jiruo said, now that the stronghold has been unsealed, there are many strengthened demons around. However, in order to allow the 8 Treasures stronghold to resume its normal operations, we can only kill them all. They are all busy. Kill Yamo. Liang Shixian thought for a moment and said, let's go help too. Although we're not as strong as you, we can still take charge of our own affairs. During this period of time, everyone's progress is not small. Forget it. Jiruo shook his head. Squad leader, those demons are strengthened by the power of the secret realm. We don't have any experience dealing with them. It's not a matter of strength. You and I are better. As for the others, we can help, but we don't need to fight for the time being. We just need to teach the children in the village well. That makes sense. Liang Shixian nodded. Liang Shixian smiled. Speaking of which, I've never been a teacher before. When I was in high school, I thought about tutoring when I went to university to earn some living expenses. I didn't expect haha. By the way, Jiruo, what are the standards of those children? Which grade is it? It'll be easier for me to prepare my lessons. Jiruo thought for a moment. According to age, there are students from preschool to 6th grade. As for standard class monitor, just pretend that you're not good enough. Liang Shixian slowly typed a question mark, as if he could not figure out how the age span from preschoolers to 6th graders could be summarized as no standard. Late at night. There were a lot of people from Spicy Hot Dumpling, including nearly 20 people from Jiruo. 8 Treasures Stronghold was not a big stronghold, so it was impossible to provide so many beds at once. The martial artists stationed there usually lived in tents. There were independent outposts further away, but they were not close. Fortunately, under Jiruo's education, the people of the Spicy Hot Dumpling group were not unreasonable people. It did not rain tonight, so they simply made do with the semi-open primary school. Rosie, arrange for quality sleep. Jiruo whispered. Meow dash, no problem, master. The current Rosie was getting more and more adept at controlling her talent. She could already roughly choose the target that was affected by her talent. The talent took effect, and not long after, everyone fell into a deep sleep. Jiruo used the shadow martial Dao and disappeared into the shadows, leaving quietly. In the dark of the night, Jiruo had Luo Jian buff him, and he quietly walked through the forest, his face full of excitement. Jiruo is obedient and won't run around. Young hero, you're here to help me kill the demon. Chapter 225, Chapter 225, Young Hero's First Show. Chapter 225, Young Hero's First Show. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Stop them. Is the flamethrower ready? Immediately, damn it, the fuel has been sucked dry. In a forest about 600 meters away from the 8 Treasures stronghold, Hu Yonglin and the others were fighting demons. They were fighting a cloud of demonic mosquitoes. The mosquitoes were fist-sized, and their long mouthparts looked ferocious and terrifying. They sucked in everything, and their mouthparts could even pierce through rocks. Under the influence of the mysterious power of the mystic realm, even the protective energy of a Starjade realm martial artist would find it difficult to withstand the penetration of the demonic mosquito's mouthparts. Not only that, but the mouthpart also carried paralyzing poison. Once bitten, it would paralyze the entire body. Hu Yonglin and the others fought and retreated. The demon mosquitoes moved too fast, and their numbers were huge but unusually agile. It was difficult for them to cause any effective damage to these demon mosquitoes. Killing 10 or 20 of them would not have much of an impact on the total number of demon mosquitoes. Lure them outside. Don't let them get close to the stockade. Hu Yonglin roared, create an isolation zone. Use the remaining fuel to ignite the surrounding trees and burn them to death. He wasn't afraid that these low-intelligence demon mosquitoes would understand his plan. Experience was not of much use against such a large group of monsters with fast movement speed. Armor fusion. Suddenly, a loud shout came from the forest. Everyone subconsciously looked in the direction of the voice. Under the night sky, a figure jumped out of the moon. The moonlight gathered on the figure, making it impossible to see the figure's appearance clearly. Moonlight gathered, and the figure's waist suddenly shone brightly. Hu Yonglin subconsciously raised his hand to block the strong light. Looks like you guys need help. A special mechanical voice sounded. After Jiruo finished his transformation, he descended from the sky. His body was covered with a thin layer of iron sheet. The material of his transformation was the pencil case that he had taken earlier. Therefore, after his transformation, there was only a simple layer of iron sheet on his body. Other than concealing his face and identity, there were no other characteristics. In fact, even the ability to hide one's identity was a feature of handsome transformation. The most beautiful thing on his body was the belt that looked like a pencil case. Spiral ball. The Iron Man Jiruo rubbed his palms together and produced an inner spiral pill. The powerful suction pulled the surrounding demonic mosquitoes over, and they were then crushed by the spiral pill. Divine weapons descended from the heavens. Hu Yonglin and the others were stunned for a moment. Just as they were about to say something, their expression suddenly changed and they exclaimed, "Be careful." A demonic mosquito suddenly appeared behind Jiruo, its sharp mouthpart glinting with a chilling light as it stabbed towards the back of Jiruo's head. The mouthpart of this mosquito could break a martial artist's protective chi barrier. The sound of metal clashing rang out. A golden light flashed across Jiruo's body. The demonic mosquito's mouthpart could not hurt Jiruo in the slightest. Even the mouthpart itself was broken by the powerful reaction force. The mosquito stopped in mid-air, forgetting to flap its wings. It couldn't understand why the sky was so hard. You even know how to sneak attack. Jiruo chuckled and said to Hu Yonglin and the others, please cover your ears. Because dash. Jiruo raised his hand and brushed it across his waist, taking out a card. On the card was a cute black kitten. Hu Yonglin was a little dazed. He felt that the kitten on the card looked familiar. Hungry demon form. Jiruo shouted and put the card into his belt. Then, black light flashed and Jiruo's appearance changed. It was dark, deep, and full of hunger. Layers of armor condensed from the void and covered Jiruo's body. The simple armor finally looked cool. The new form looked a little playful. It was clearly black, but it was inexplicably not oppressive. Instead, it gave people a strange feeling. Damn you. Jiruo raised her middle finger at the demonic mosquitoes. Hu Yonglin and the others did not understand. They thought, why are you scolding them? They don't understand. The demonic mosquitoes that filled the sky actually stopped for a moment, and then no longer dodged. Instead, they charged crazily at Jiruo, as if they were really enraged. From afar, the demonic mosquitoes that filled the sky looked like a cone-shaped black cloud. The buzzing sound of their wings mixed together, making one's scalp tingle. Hu Yonglin and the others could not understand, but they were greatly shocked. However, they also understood that now was not the time to be surprised. Therefore, they each used their martial techniques and attacked the surging demonic mosquitoes. This thank you for your help. Leave the rest to us. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Jiruo put his hands to his mouth and laughed. The laughter seemed to have solidified and set off a rolling sound wave that fanned out crazily. In their rage, the demonic mosquitoes did not have much rationality and did not dodge. They were instantly hit by the rolling sound waves, and cracks actually appeared on the cuticular layer of their bodies. Lion's roar technique, one smile falling 1,000 mosquitoes. What a powerful sound technique. A martial artist could not help but praise. Jiruo raised his hand and touched his waist again, and another card appeared. The card this time was a pair of unassuming half-finger gloves. Armed. Jiruo growled and inserted the new card into the pencil case on his belt. Then, the armor on his body changed again. Complicated patterns appeared on the surface of the armor, greatly increasing the friction of Jiruo's armor. He even felt that his movements were somewhat restricted, and the air instantly became like a quagmire. Stir-fried palm. Jiruo struck out with both palms, causing his body to rub violently against the air. The temperature instantly rose to a terrifying level, and flames began to burn. Apart from the powerful fire power, the stir-fried palm was also extremely fast. Otherwise, how could it be called stir-fried? The flaming palm prints were sent out by Jiruo, but they didn't land on the demonic mosquitoes. The mosquitoes were temporarily immobilized by Jiruo's lion's roar. They felt the sudden high temperature and subconsciously became restless. Jiruo immediately pulled and turned his palms, his strong will even grabbing the surrounding water vapor. The surrounding plants and vegetation began to wither at a visible rate due to the water being sucked away. High temperature, water vapor, and Jiruo's control. The combination of the three was the human world palm technique. Steamer. In just a few moments, the demon mosquitoes that had not died were completely cooked. The martial artists were dumbfounded. They couldn't defeat the demon mosquitoes. Of course not. It was just that there were a large number of devil mosquitoes and they were agile, so killing them was very troublesome. They had thought that they would spend the night here, but who would have thought? Thank you for your help. May I ask who you are? Hu Yonglin asked. You can call me young hero. Jiruo raised his thumb and pointed at himself. I am the messenger of justice, the companion of good children. Hu Yonglin's mouth twitched, but he still politely cupped his hands and said, so it's little hero in front of me, young hero, forgive me for being presumptuous, but there's something. I know what you want to say. It's our duty to kill demons and devils. There's no need to be polite, so don't worry. Even if you don't say it, I'll help. No, what I meant to say was that this is the border control area, we need to know your true identity. If you don't have the relevant documents, you will be sent back. Jiruo. Chapter 226, Chapter 226, The Shapeshifter's Volume is very important. Chapter 226, The Shapeshifter's Volume is very important. Warrior Ox will never take off his mask. After saying this, Jiruo fled into the shadows. What kind of joke was this? How could the identity of the Masked Knight be exposed in the first episode? He had his identification and other relevant documents, but they didn't belong to the young hero. You don't have any documents. Hu Yonglin was deep in thought. Captain Hu, do you want to chase after them? A martial artist at the side asked. There's no need. The situation is special now. Although this guy doesn't have any documents, He's indeed helping. Moreover, his strength isn't weak. Perhaps it was a warm-hearted person. Probably, but why didn't he have any identification? The border garrison assessment isn't difficult either. Why do you think he's wearing such tight clothes? Hu Yonglin thought for a moment. Generally speaking, there are only a few reasons for not wanting to reveal their appearance. Although that guy's voice has obviously been altered, from the contact just now, this guy shouldn't be very old. Hu Yonglin analyzed, maybe he came secretly behind his family's back. Because his family objected to him doing this, he dressed like that. But our network here is not connected to the domestic network. It doesn't matter even if it's exposed, right? Moreover, the personal information of our border guards will be protected. This is another possibility. Have you forgotten? Hu Yonglin said, the strictest thing about our border garrison is the political review. The martial artist was shocked. That guy is so strong. How could he not even pass the political review? Who knows? I'm just guessing. Hu Yonglin shrugged. Anyway, let's report this guy's information first. We won't care about him for the time being. How could Jiruo be unable to pass the political trial? He hadn't even gone through a political review. The certificate given to Jiruo Kai by the first martial arts school was a volunteer testimony. I knew it. The vigilante can only appear in movies. After shaking off Hu Yonglin and the others, Jiruo could not help but complain. In his mind, Rosie's excited meow kept ringing. Meow, this new ability is awesome. A smile appeared on Jiruo's handsome face under the mask. Right? Let's fight side by side and kill. The ability handsome transformation could obtain the corresponding characteristics according to the transformation material. The definition of this material was consistent with the system teacher's style and was very broad. It was so broad that Jiruo could even press Luo Jian on his waist and use her as a transformation material to complete the fusion transformation. After transforming, Jiruo could temporarily use Luo Jian's abilities. Luo Jian's dazzling talent library was also at Jiruo's disposal. However, in comparison, Jiruo still felt that it was better to transform with a pencil case. Although the pencil case itself was very ordinary, if it was just a transformation, it would not bring much bonus to its characteristics. Even its iron skin was not as hard as Jiruo's indestructible diamond. But what was a pencil case for? Stationary. Jiruo tried it out and found that the pencil case was actually very strong. For example, the pencil case would become a pencil case after it was filled with pens. After an eraser was installed, it would become a pencil case with an eraser. This was very much in line with the system teacher's judgment standards. It was simple and intuitive. Jiruo thought about it briefly. Combined with the card collection book that the system teacher had long rewarded him with, he successfully became a king's cavalry. The setting of the card collection booklet was that all the things that he had could be collected in the form of cards. Luo Jian was also Jiruo's possessor, so she could become a card. In the transformation state, the card collection book turned into a card box and hung on the side of Jiruo's belt. Collecting cards, inserting cards, and storing in stationary boxes, the Imperial Knight was born. But speaking of which, Rosie, are you always this hungry? Jiruo rubbed her stomach. Meow, course. It's really quite uncomfortable. Feeling the strong hunger rising in his heart, Jiruo knew that he was full, but he still couldn't help but want to eat. Big hungry demon is still really hungry, is it? You evolved, can't you eat your fill? Meow, yes. Luo Jian said in Jiruo's mind, meow, give me that godhead to eat. I have a feeling that I'll be full after eating that. Divine spark, let me think about it. The storage space in the Wanxiang mirror was universal. Luo Jian could also take out the things that Jiruo had stored in the Wanxiang mirror through her small mirror. However, Luo Jian was very obedient. Without Jiruo's permission, she would not eat it. Meow, then master, quickly consider it. Anxious. There's no hurry. Tonight is the special night for the young sword, and the ingredients stored in the Wanxiang mirror are almost used up. We need to replenish them. Jiruo closed his eyes and used Luo Jian's ability to sense the situation around him. The intense hunger was not without merit. It would make Jiruo have the desire to devour everything. As long as he used this desire reasonably. Jiruo opened his eyes. The black goggles on the top of his helmet turned into cat eyes. The fragrance seemed to have a shape in Jiruo's vision. The food that Luo Jian chose for her intense hunger was based on strength. The stronger the food was, the stronger the fragrance. Although he was handsome and strong after his transformation, it was very inconvenient to take off his shoes. If he didn't throw his shoes to ask for directions, his absolute direction sense would be very touching. Fortunately, Rosie had enough talent, so it did not affect anything. Jiruo searched for his next target while taking out the cards in the card box to study. Tai Chi training clothes, small wooden sticks, insulated gloves, Imitation water guns, feathers from Antjing Lanel didn't expect to have so many cards. I'll try them all tonight, hee. Jiruo thought for a moment, then suddenly reached out to grab at the air beside him. The white cat, who had already evolved into a demon immortal but could only exist in the form of a heroic spirit due to insufficient incense, was directly grabbed by Jiruo and turned into a card. Oh right, Dubai, you can only look but not touch. It's pretty boring, isn't it? After the transformation, you will temporarily merge with me, and then you will be able to chat directly in my mind like Rosie. Chen Mo was shocked. I want it to. Little trick Ruo, quickly turn me into a card. Jiruo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Uncle Chen Mo, you don't have to join in the fun. I can't turn you into a card. I can change myself. The inner demon didn't have a specific form, so Chen Mo turned it into a card as he spoke. Jiruo was stunned for a moment, then smiled and stuffed the card that Chen Mo had turned into and the white cat card into the pencil case on her belt. The original Emperor Knight could only insert one card at a time because his shapeshifter only had one card slot. Jiruo's shapeshifter was a pencil case. There was no rule that a pencil case could only hold one card, therefore, the capacity of the shapeshifter was still very important. Chapter 227, Chapter 227, Isn't it just a tremble? 1. Chapter 227, Isn't it just a tremble? 1. At the borders of Great Xia, the most numerous demons were snakes, rats, mosquitoes, and ants. It was not that these 5 types of demons were very strong, but that they were good at hiding and reproducing quickly. Most importantly, they usually did not eat people. They mainly destroyed farmland and crops. No matter how strong the holy image was, it was still a dead thing. There was no way to identify the 5 types of demons. As a result, these 4 types of demons were rampant on the border. There were dozens of different species of mosquito demons around the 8 treasures stronghold, and these species would evolve according to the seasons. As for natural enemies, to put it bluntly, the natural enemies of these types of demons were even more outrageous. There are so many mosquitoes here. Can't they just put out the harm-annihilating spirit? After killing another wave of mosquito-type demons, Jiruo couldn't help but feel a little irritated. As the mosquitoes flew, they buzzed like demonic music. At first, it was fine, but now, when Jiruo closed his eyes, even if there were no mosquitoes flying around him, his head was still buzzing. Master, the white cat said, I remember that among the talents I saved for Rosie, there is a talent that can isolate noise. Wait for me to find it for you. Jiruo smiled. Thank you, Dubai. You're so considerate. You're indeed an elder sister, unlike Luo Qian. She doesn't even know what talent she has. Meow. Rosie was a little angry. Meow, she said. I have so many talents. It's normal that I can't remember them. Let alone Luo Qian, even if it was Jiruo, it would be difficult for him to thoroughly study Luo Qian's talents in a short period of time. That was nearly 1,000 talents. It's still early. Let's continue killing. If I don't experience it myself, I can't imagine what kind of life those warriors on the border are living. Jiruo sighed. We've only been here for half a night and we can't take it anymore. They've been stationed here for many years. Chen Mo said seriously, Indeed, Master, you're right. Jiruo almost choked on his saliva and said, Cough cough, Uncle Chen Mo, why are you joining in the fun? I call you uncle, and you call me master. Is this appropriate? What? Can't I? I saw them both call me that. Wouldn't it be a little unsociable if I didn't, said Chen Mo. He doesn't fit in well. Chen Mo said nonchalantly, It's alright, it's alright. We'll talk about our own things. Just like Xiao Xiao and I. I call him boss, and he calls me uncle. We'll talk about our own things. Alright, Uncle Chen Mo, as long as you're happy. Jiruo said helplessly. Hee, then he'll definitely be happy. Continue killing, the night is still long. At this moment, there were 3 resident cards in the pencil case on Jiruo's waist. Hungry Demon Rose, Incense God White Cat, Old Devil Chen Mo. The 3 cards allowed Jiruo to inherit the characteristics of all 3 at the same time. Luo Qian's talent library was needless to say. Chen Mo's characteristics weren't obvious on Jiruo's armor. It was mainly the white cat. However, because the white cat was also a cat, the main style of the armor was still a cat. Jiruo's battle armor had cat ears, and there were 6 cat whiskers on his mask, which were distributed on the left and right sides. The goggles especially gave people the feeling that Jiruo was looking at him as if he was looking at trash. Surprisingly, it did not make people feel disgusted, but instead aroused a strange feeling in their hearts. It was probably that she would give people the feeling of a noble queen. Not only that, but there was also fluffy hair on Jiruo's neck, which made him look graceful and luxurious. Sharp nails extended out of his fingers, of course, those were the nails of the armor, not Jiruo's own nails. During battle, these fingernails could extend, allowing Jiruo to use crazy cat scratch. Beneath his feet was a pair of mixed-color high-top leather boots, making Jiruo walk like a cat without making any sound. The main color of the armor was black and white, which was a combination of yin and yang. Outside the armor, there was a bright yellow windbreaker, which was probably the embodiment of the divine power of incense. In short, he was handsome, and noble. By the way, little thing, what did you mean when you asked me if I still thought I was a transmigrator? Although Ji Xiaoxiao was angry that Jiruo didn't want to play with her, she still said, you know that I'm your inner demon, and I have all your memories, right? Actually, I've only just noticed this memory. Ji Xiaoxiao examined Jiruo's current attire and said, yes, I'm getting closer and closer. So that's why stop playing riddles and tell me the truth. That thing hasn't happened yet. It's useless for me to say it now. Ji Xiaoxiao thought for a moment and said. And if you think about it carefully, after that incident, you did become a transmigrator. It's just that it's a little different from the transmigration you understand. What do you mean? I mean it literally. Ji Xiaoxiao shrugged. You dare to be fierce to me? Ji Xiaoxiao grinned. I won't say it. Who asked you to transform and not bring me along to play? Think about it yourself. Hey. You little thing. Don't worry about me. You should think about how to deal with those rats first. Ji Xiaoxiao gloated. It was only then that Jiruo realized that he had been surrounded by a group of demon rats. The basin-sized rat-type demons under his feet moved wildly, and Jiruo's mouth twitched. Dubai, is Rosie's noise-cancelling talent two-way? The white cat was a little embarrassed. So what if he was deaf? What noise reduction talent? Before dawn, Jiruo returned to the 8 treasures stronghold on the shadow. Just like when he left, he did not attract anyone's attention. Under normal circumstances, this should be the case. Jiruo? Where did you go last night? In the temporary sleeping shed built by Babayazai Primary School, Liang Shixian stared at Jiruo with a pair of thick dark circles under his eyes. I went out for a morning run this morning. Nonsense. Liang Shixian said in a low voice. You didn't come back the whole night. Jiruo felt a little guilty and tried to change the topic. Then why aren't you sleeping, class president? Aren't you sleeping? Actually, Jiruo was also a little confused. Before he left last night, he had specially asked Luo Qian to use quality sleep to help everyone fall asleep. Although this talent was not harmful, it could only be used as a hypnotic method. Under the premise of not being noticed, even Jiruo would find it difficult to withstand a sudden surge of strong sleepiness. Liang Shixian, you clearly slept last night. Why did you suddenly wake up in the middle of the night? I'm sleepy. Liang Shixian saw that Jiruo didn't want to say more, so he didn't ask any more questions. He took out the lesson that he had stayed up all night and said, know that you guys definitely don't know how to prepare for lessons. It's not enough to just have textbooks in class. We don't have any experience as teachers. If we don't prepare for lessons, it's easy to get stuck in the middle of the lecture. Therefore, I worked on the lecture overnight. Although I didn't do it very well, at least I wouldn't suddenly stop talking. Jiruo looked at the densely packed handwriting on the notebook and was filled with respect. Class monitor, you've worked hard. It's a little hard, and Liang Shixian couldn't help but complain. Jiruo, you're really something. If you wanted to inform everyone, you should have just informed them. You made us only know that we wanted to be teachers after we came over. You're really. Jiruo scratched his head in embarrassment. Class monitor, you should catch up on your sleep today. We'll do the class. No. Why are you still sleeping at this time? I'll be teaching the first class later, Liang Shixian said seriously. This way, I can confirm the real level of the children and see if there's anything that needs to be changed in the class. Jiruo didn't try to persuade him. Liang Shixian was a good person, but his sense of responsibility was too strong. Of course, this was also the reason why Jiruo liked the class monitor not in the way you think. By the way, class monitor, Jiruo said, I recently learned a very strong hard body skill. Do you want to learn it? Comprehended. Liang Shixian couldn't remain calm anymore. It's just a small matter, Jiruo said indifferently. Liang Shixian was speechless. What is the name of this hard body skill? Indestructible Diamond Divine Art. Judging from the name, it was indeed created by you. Chapter 228, Chapter 228, Taiji Londe Fist, 1. Chapter 228, Taiji Londe Fist, 1. 2 hours later. Niuli and the other children slowly came to school from home. They didn't want to come, but they had no choice. The situation was special. Before the strengthened demons were almost eliminated, even the adults of the 8 treasures stronghold had to be careful when doing farm work. They couldn't take good care of them. If they didn't come to school, the parents would be worried that these little fellows would run around. Although Jiruo and the others were not professional teachers, they were still martial artists. It was much safer for the children to stay in school than to work with the adults. The adults were also relieved. So many people. I don't know them. The children leaned on the low fence and looked at Liang Shixian and the others curiously. They did not enter the school immediately. Children who grew up in the city were different from children who grew up on the border. Although they also had 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, to Niuli and the others, Liang Shixian and the others had a unique temperament. It made them subconsciously desire it, but they did not dare to approach it. These city people were so fair and clean. They were really good looking. Niuli thought. Although the martial artists stationed there were also from the city, those people had stayed at the border for a long time, so they did not feel much of the temperament of city people. However, Liang Shixian and the others had just arrived previously, there was only Jiruo as the substitute teacher. Niuli and the others did not show any fear because they had the advantage in numbers. However, their advantage in numbers was gone now. The number of people from Spicy Dumpling this time was almost as many as the children in 8 treasures stronghold. Since he was already here, why didn't he come in? Jiruo found Niuli and the others leaning on the low fence, looking around but not coming in. He was a little confused. Teacher Ji. Niuli hesitated for a moment and said, "Who are these people?" "They are my classmates and will be your teachers in the future." "Come on in," Jiruo waved with a smile. "The teachers have prepared gifts for you." "A gift?" "Yes." Jiruo asked Su Dong and the others to carry out the various supplies they had brought. "Everyone has a share." "Wow." The children's eyes instantly lit up. There were brand new pencil cases, brand new notebooks, bright-colored new clothes, and even a pair of tennis and table tennis bats. The temperament of a city man and a border man? What the hell was that? The children no longer hesitated and rushed into the school. "Don't snatch, don't snatch. Everyone has one." Su Dong and the others got busy. Every child had a share of everything they brought, and there were even more. Chu Fei brought a few female club members to distribute female clothing to the little girls. She saw a little girl staring at a white floral dress, her eyes filled with love but she did not dare to speak. Chu Fei pulled the little girl over and said, "Little girl, do you like this dress?" "I like it," the girl said loudly. "Then I'll give it to you." The girl quickly reached out to grab it. However, just as her hand touched the dress, she quickly retracted it as if she had been electrocuted. There was a mud mark on her white floral dress. The little girl was flustered and hurriedly said, "Teacher, I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. I'm sorry. I'm too dirty." Chu Fei could not help but sniffle. The rest of the children were similar. It was not easy to transport supplies along the border. In addition, the 8 treasures stronghold had been sealed for a period of time. The people living here did not really care about personal hygiene. There weren't many clean water sources that weren't contaminated by demon creatures, and there weren't any shower gel or anything like that. Jiruo had brought them to the reservoir yesterday to play, which was basically a bath. These children didn't have to work in the fields for the time being, but they had to wake up early to start a fire and cook. Although it was still early in the morning, they were still dirty. "What's not clean?" Jiruo suddenly stuck his head out and shouted, "Yeah. Why did you dirty your new clothes?" The children timidly retracted their hands. Chu Fei froze for a moment and glared at Jiruo. "How can you say that?" Jiruo laughed. As he spoke, Jiruo started practicing Taiji Fist. The morning breeze stirred up the water in the school's water tank and moved it in the air with Jiruo's movements. There were even a few small fish that Jiruo had brought back yesterday in the water tank. They flew up with the current and panicked under the morning sunday. Jiruo seemed to have grabbed a water dragon. The water dragon swam and gently brushed past the hands and faces of every child. Feeling the cool feeling of the water flowing through his body, he could not help but follow Jiruo's example and reach out to grab it. The mud on the children's bodies was washed away by the water and became clean. Although Jiruo's Taiji Fist had only reached the advanced level, his control over the fist intent had already reached the microscopic level. After washing away all the dirt, Jiruo slowly moved, and the water slowly rose into the sky, like the heavenly river. Jiruo thought of something and loosened his control slightly. The fine water droplets fell like a drizzle. When the sunlight shone on them, a small rainbow appeared above the children's heads. It was so close that it was dreamy and gorgeous. "It's a rainbow. I caught rainbow." The children were pleasantly surprised. Even the younger brothers and sisters who had just turned 1 month old on their backs could not help but reach out and grab the little rainbow. Every child's eyes reflected the 7-colored light. Even Luo Qian was attracted by the sudden appearance of the rainbow. She jumped up from Jiruo's shoulder and grabbed at the rainbow. Su Dong subconsciously took out his phone and took a photo of the scene. The image froze. Chu Fei looked at Jiruo, who was smiling brightly under the rainbow, and was a little dazed. Jiruo raised his hand, and the flowing water condensed into a water ball in front of him, which he threw back into the water tank. What are you daydreaming about? Jiruo looked at Chu Fei in confusion. Without thinking too much, he took the white floral dress from Chu Fei's hands and handed it to the little girl. "Ya, come, take it." Jiruo, who had been a teacher for a day, had already memorized the names of all the children in the class. Ya was obviously still immersed in Jiruo's beautiful Taiji fist. By the time she came back to her senses, she had already subconsciously picked up the floral white dress in the hand. Ya quickly lowered her head to check. The mud marks on her white dress had disappeared without a trace. She looked at Jiruo in astonishment. "Little brat, do you like this gift?" Jiruo asked with a smile. "I like it," Ya said loudly. She happily held the little white dress up to her body, unable to put it down. All the children received their gifts and were satisfied. They laughed non-stop. The people from Spicy Hot Pot couldn't help but laugh. Liang Shixian stood beside Jiruo and said with emotion, "I'll be frank. Jiruo, I've always admired your development of martial arts. Honestly, when you first created this fist technique, did you want to be able to practice while washing clothes?" Liang Shixian knew that Jiruo was the creator of Taiji fist. Who knows, maybe. This is really... Liang Shixian didn't know what to say. Liang Shixian had long known that Jiruo's martial arts talent was ridiculously strong, but Jiruo had forcefully trained the iron sand palm into stir-fried palm, and now, this internal Taiji fist, which was known to be able to borrow strength to fight, had been trained into the Taiji washing fist by Jiruo. He was really strong, but he was also really down to earth. What did he mean? Lifestyle martial arts. Suddenly, Liang Shixian seemed to have thought of something, and his expression suddenly changed. "Jiruo, tell me honestly, did you want to practice indestructible diamond from the very beginning to turn yourself into a washboard? It's so convenient to wash clothes, right?" Just as the young man was about to say something, a person suddenly walked in from outside the school. A large shadow cast down, and the children revealed some fear on their faces as they hid behind the teachers. Like Liang Shixian, he had thick dark circles under his eyes. He carried a metal black coffin that weighed more than 1,000 pounds on his back, but he made no sound as he walked. "Eh? Why are there suddenly so many people?" Gu Shaoxian was a little confused, but he did not think too much about it. Instead, he smiled at Jiruo and said, "Jiruo, I heard that you're a teacher here. Do you still need people? I want to help too." Chapter 229, Chapter 229, Holy Statue in the Coffin. Chapter 229, Holy Statue in the Coffin. "Jiruo, who is this?" Liang Shixian asked hesitantly. Gu Shaoxuan's dressing was really two who would carry a coffin to school early in the morning. Although the school was a little shabby. Liang Shixian looked at the low fence around the school and the half-open classroom. He thought for a moment and asked in a low voice, "Jiruo, is this a special custom here?" Jiruo was a little confused. What kind of custom requires a coffin? For example, mourning and whatnot. Even with Jiruo's brain, he couldn't react in time. You call this keeping filial piety when you carry the corpses of your ancestors with you? This was too filial. Jiruo looked at Liang Shixian in a daze. Liang Shixian scratched his head. After he finished speaking, he also felt that something was wrong. If it was really a local custom, these children shouldn't be so afraid. The conversation between the two was not loud, but Gu Shaoxian was not an ordinary person. He heard everything they said. He smiled and said, "This friend is actually right. I'm indeed in mourning. By the way, do you need to handle the funeral service? It was best to handle this kind of thing while he was alive. After all, no one knew who would come first, tomorrow or an accident, right? If they made an appointment in advance, they wouldn't be buried in a foreign land. Let me tell you, on the border of Great Xia, my family's funeral business is definitely the best. No funeral shop can compare to my family. To be honest, Jiruo and I are sworn brothers. If you are Jiruo's friends, then you are my friends. If you book now, I can give you a 40% discount and an extra coffin. By the way, friend, do you prefer burial or cremation?" The so-called no other shop can compare to it probably meant that there was only one shop on the entire border. He had never heard of a funeral service at the border. Liang Shixian stayed up all night to do the lesson, so he was not in a good state of mind. When he heard this, he subconsciously replied, "If I could choose, I'd still like to be sanctified, thank you." Hey. What's so good about sanctification? It's a tradition of our great Xia since ancient times. Sanctification is really against. Before Gu Shaoxian could finish, he was interrupted by Jiruo. The young man said angrily, "To be honest, I didn't agree to become sworn brothers with you yesterday." Jiruo pulled Gu Shaoxian aside and asked in a low voice, "What are you doing here?" Although she wasn't very familiar with Gu Shaoxian, based on Jiruo's current understanding of him, this funeral stall owner named Gu Shaoxian might have some problems with his brain. Gu Shaoxian could not help but complain, "What do you mean by joining in the fun? I really want to help you teach your child." Jiruo said patiently, "You see, we don't lack teachers anymore. We have a substitute teacher in charge of all subjects." "Nonsense, you clearly have a class that no one is teaching." "What class?" "The ancient funeral culture of Great Xia." Jiruo's face darkened. "This was a lesson you taught yourself. Do you think it's appropriate for you to tell the children this?" Jiruo asked tactfully. "What's inappropriate about it? Isn't this knowledge? But this knowledge is not suitable to be taught in class." This time, it was Gu Shaoxuan's turn to interrupt. He looked at Jiruo and asked seriously, "Is there a difference in the value of knowledge?" What knowledge was not knowledge? These things were indeed passed down from the ancestors, right? He couldn't just cut off the inheritance just because everyone wanted to sanctify it, right? Jiruo was surprised. He did not expect Gu Shaoxian to say such a thing. Was there no distinction between noble and humble knowledge? Because of her rigid impression of Gu Shaoxian, Jiruo had a preconceived notion that Gu Shaoxian was not a decent person, but Gu Shaoxian looked at Jiruo and said sincerely, "You saw it too." "What was the first reaction of those children when they saw me?" "It was fear. People should be in awe of death and the dead, but they should not be afraid of the dead. Was this right? I feel that something is wrong. I want to do something. Please, let me be a teacher." Jiruo pondered for a moment. "Answer me a question first. Please speak. Is this coffin you're carrying used to store things, or? This. Didn't I tell you? I'm in mourning." Gu Shaoxian smiled. He took down the coffin behind him and carefully opened the lid in front of Ji. A golden light entered his eyes. "As you can see, it's a statue." Gu Shaoxian shrugged. "The holy image." Jiruo's mouth was wide open in surprise. The statue in the coffin was shriveled and twisted. It didn't have the majesty of the other statues at all, and it was only one-third the size of a normal statue. His expression was extremely ferocious, and there seemed to be some lingering fear. It was as if something terrifying had happened to him before he died. "This is my brother." Gu Shaoxian looked at the statue in the coffin and his tone suddenly became unusually gentle. "He's obviously not brave, but he insisted on learning from others." Back then, Gu Shaoxuan's eyes revealed a look of reminiscence, but he did not continue. Instead, he smiled and shook his head. "Forget it, it's an old story. I won't say it." "Why do you keep bringing him along?" Jiruo asked. Gu Shaoxian was silent for a moment before saying, "Before he died, he told me to live well. Our great Xia is so beautiful, but he didn't have the time to see it. He said it was a pity that he wanted me to live and take a good look for him. How can I see so much scenery alone?" So she brought him along. If she wanted to see, she could go and see it herself, even though he could no longer see it now. Jiruo looked down at the withered golden statue in the coffin and suddenly said, "Have you prepared your lessons?" Jiruo looked at Gu Shaoxian and said seriously, "How are you going to teach without preparing anything? We didn't prepare any textbooks on this." Gu Shaoxian was stunned for a moment before he was overjoyed. "You agree? What are you saying? I'm just a substitute teacher. What's the use of me agreeing or not? I'm not the principal." Jiruo rolled her eyes. "If you want to go to class, then go ahead. But I'll tell you in advance that you're not allowed to tell horror stories to the children in class." They were still young, and it was easy to scare them with horror stories. "Haha, don't worry." Gu Shaoxian carried the coffin back and said, "El knew you would agree to it because we are the same." Jiruo was confused, "Is the same as you? Where did you find out?" "Oh." Gu Shaoxian smiled mysteriously and said, "You also believe that the world after death exists, right? The dead souls enter the yellow springs, cross the bridge of helplessness, drink Mangpo's soup, and reincarnate. Isn't that feudal superstition?" Jiruo frowned. Gu Shaoxian winked at Jiruo. "Superstitious? Who knows, just take it as superstition, haha." Then, Gu Shaoxian turned around and waved his hand. "Then I'll go prepare for my lessons. See you later." Jiruo was stunned for a long time, then suddenly grumbled, "Why does everyone like to play riddles with me now?" Chapter 230, Chapter 230, The Death Culture of Great Xia. Chapter 230, The Death Culture of Great Xia. Feudal superstition. Gu Shaoxian turned around and looked in the direction of the school. He suddenly smiled. As expected, he didn't admit it directly. Yesterday, he had personally witnessed Ji Ruobai's sacrifice. At that time, Gu Shaoxian was so excited that he almost jumped out on the spot. But he held back. In fact, he knew that he was not popular, but for his dream. In short, he tried all kinds of methods after the incident, but the statue in the coffin did not react at all. Gu Shaoxian did not sleep the entire night. In the end, he had no other choice. After hesitating for a long time, he decided to ask Ji Ruo personally. But it seemed like Ji Ruo didn't want to talk to him. Are you suspecting me? Come to think of it, how could such a thing be publicized? Gu Shaoxian shook his head slightly and was a little puzzled. But why did he only get a cat? Shouldn't knowledge be distinguished by its value? Liang Shixian pondered for a moment after hearing Ji Ruo's explanation. That makes sense. Not to mention these children, even I don't know much about that kind of thing. I even have prejudice. Jiruo, you're right. I'll listen to it too. If he dares to tell horror stories to scare the children, I'll kick him out. Liang Shixian was speechless. There was no need to be so excessive. After all, he had good intentions. Moreover, how could he not mention horror stories when he was talking about that kind of knowledge? The people from Spicy Hot Dumpling Group had no experience in teaching. Although Liang Shixian had stayed up all night to do the lesson, this was his first time being a teacher. On the first day of class, other than Ji Ruo, everyone else was just following the script. Fortunately, the children had obtained brand new textbooks. Their enthusiasm for learning today was quite high. However, he did not know how long this enthusiasm would last. The reason why Ji Ruo didn't follow the textbook was mainly because when he arranged the class schedule, he arranged it for himself to be a physical education class. The physical education teacher didn't have a textbook. It would be good to play with the students. It suited Ji Ruo's character very well. He was good at this. For the entire morning, Liang Shixian had been listening in on everyone else's classes. He wasn't listening to the lecture. He was just recording some of the problems that appeared in the class, recalling what the teacher had said in class, recording the problems, and then gathering everyone to discuss and think about how to change it after school at night. Even with Liang Shixian's physical fitness in the Kumai realm, there was a deep sense of fatigue between his brows. Class monitor, why don't you rest for a while? You haven't slept for almost a day and a night. Su Dong could not help but say when he saw this. No. We're teachers now, Liang Shixian said seriously. If even we have problems, then the knowledge that the children have learned must have problems too. We might not have to take over the classes for long, but what we affect is the lives of those children. We can't be careless. Ji Ruo smiled helplessly. Although he felt a little distressed, Ji Ruo didn't intend to persuade Liang Shixian to do anything. This guy could donate blood until he was forcibly detained by the hospital. Who could persuade him? Su Dong smacked his lips and didn't know what to say for a moment. He said dryly, then class monitor, I'll help you too. Speaking of which, when I was in class just now, the people from Spicy Hot Dumpling who had no classes for the time being squatted outside the fence and began to discuss in low voices. Inside the fence, the children were studying diligently. Outside the fence, the teachers were also studying. 2 p.m. Gu Shaoxian carried the black coffin to the school. Before entering the classroom, Gu Shaoxian hesitated for a moment. Then, he took down the black coffin behind him and placed it beside the classroom. Then, he stepped onto the simple podium. When the children saw Gu Shaoxian walk into the classroom, they subconsciously shrank their necks, and there was a faint fear in their eyes. They did not know what they were afraid of, but the adults at home had already said that the big box that Gu Shaoxian had been carrying on his back was used to store the dead. Gu Shaoxian did not care about the children's fearful gazes. He smiled and greeted everyone. My name is Gu Shaoxian. You should all know me, right? From today onwards, I will be your teacher. Then, Gu Shaoxian did not waste any more time. Instead, he inexplicably took out a withered flower from his pocket. Does everyone know what this is? A dead flower, Niuli whispered. Yes, dead flowers. Gu Shaoxian nodded with a smile and said, this student, your name is Niuli, right? I remember you. Yes, you were the first to answer the question. Not bad. I remember you. Niuli was so scared that he was about to cry. He said, can you not remember me? I was wrong. I won't dare to answer you again. Before Gu Shaoxian came to the 8 treasures stronghold, the adults in the stronghold would scare the children by saying, if you don't listen, you'll be captured and eaten by demons. After Gu Shaoxian arrived, it became, if you don't listen, I'll let that strange uncle lock you in the coffin. Gu Shaoxian actually knew about these things, but he did not care. He was used to it. Wrong? That's right, your answer is very accurate. However, you can't not answer the question. Niuli, do you want to be locked in a coffin by the teacher? Gu Shaoxian said with a smile. No, don't. Haha, teacher was just joking. Gu Shaoxian thought that he had made a good joke, so he ignored the terrified children and continued to teach. Students, please take a good look at the flower in teacher's hand. Do you think this flower is ugly? Ugly. With Niuli as a lesson, the children did not dare to ignore Gu Shaoxian anymore. They carefully told the truth. Yes, very ugly. Gu Shaoxian placed the withered flower on the lecture table and sighed. The fear and prejudice people have towards death is largely due to the fact that death is ugly. After seeing the ugliness of death, people begin to be afraid when they think about how they will become like that in the future. He glanced at Jiruo, who was leaning on the fence, and continued, is death scary? Actually, it was not scary. When death came, he couldn't touch it, or smell it. Everything was reduced to nothingness, unable to sense, unable to move, unable to imagine. That was actually the most terrifying aspect of death. But at that time, would people still feel afraid? Death is death. There will be nothing left. Even thoughts will not exist. Fear is actually just an illusion for us living people. The dead can't do anything. Gu Shaoxuan's voice seemed to have some kind of magic, and the children began to think subconsciously. They were imagining the feeling that Gu Shaoxian had described. Ya suddenly whispered, but Teacher Gu, even if the martial saint grandfathers have become like that, they will still protect us. Yes, they will protect us. Gu Shaoxian looked at Ya approvingly and said, it's precisely because they will protect us even if they die that we pay our respects to them during the new year. Students, in this class, the teacher wants to tell you a story about death. For some reason, the sun was clearly high in the sky, and the scorching sun was hanging high in the sky, but everyone felt an inexplicable chill. Su Dong's body moved and he almost rushed in. Don't be anxious. Let's wait and see what he has to say. Gu Shaoxian smiled and said softly, a long time ago, the ancestors of my great Xia developed the concept of soul. At that time, people believed that after a person died, the soul would not die with him. It could still interfere with the lives of the living, and their fates. Chapter 231, Chapter 231, Demonic Creatures Invasion. Chapter 231, Demonic Creatures Invasion. Soul, is it a ghost? Su Dong leaned against the fence and said in a trembling voice, Class. President, does that thing really exist? Although Jiruo was the president, Liang Shixian had spent more time with them. After all, Jiruo graduated so quickly, and Su Dong and the others usually discussed everything with Liang Shixian. How could there be? That's all feudal superstition. Liang Shixian was also listening, but his focus was obviously off. He stared intently at Gu Shaoxian, who was writing something in his notebook. This fellow's lecture is really good. It's so immersive, and it even gives people the feeling of being there. How did he do it? Liang Shixian scratched his head and recorded his thoughts as he recalled. First, use a concrete object as an example and throw out a question. Then, he would use his identity and the children's prejudice. There was also a voice. His voice clearly did not sound special, but it seemed to have a life of its own, as if it would take the initiative to drill into people's ears. Was it some kind of sound wave martial arts? While analyzing the records, he praised in a low voice, wonderful. Luo Qian, who was squatting on the shoulder of Jiruo, looked at him in confusion. Liang Shixian was confused. Why did he imitate her? Although Jiruo was also listening very seriously, he did not react as much as the others. He just felt that Gu Shaoxuan's words were very interesting. Putting aside the faint terrifying atmosphere that Gu Shaoxian had deliberately created, this fellow really advocated the theory of the indestructible soul. The content of his lecture revolved around the theory of the indestructible soul. He believed that because the ancients could not accept the death of a loved one or someone, they imagined that the dead could live like a living person after death. Therefore, based on this theory, they constructed a complete afterlife world for the dead. Road to the underworld, River of Forgetfulness, Underworld, Yudu. Gu Shaoxian told the children one bizarre story after another. Although the children still felt afraid, they could not help but be attracted by the world that Gu Shaoxian described. I've been to many places and explored many ancient sites over the years, Gu Shaoxian said with a smile. In the beginning, the soul was unrestrained. It could go wherever it wanted, see whatever it wanted, and listen to whatever it wanted to hear. Perhaps there were some souls accompanying the students in class right now. They can see our fellow students, and they may also express their opinions on a certain student. Because living people like us can't see souls, they can communicate and discuss without any restraint around us. The children felt their hair stand on end. Niuli couldn't help but ask, will they watch us when we go to the toilet? Who knows? Maybe they will. Souls don't care what the living are doing. They can see whatever they want. It's useless even if the door is closed. They can pass through walls, and we, the living, can't find them. Not to mention the children, even the people from the spicy hot dumpling felt a chill down their spines. It seems like the students don't like the spirits peeping at them, Gu Shaoxian said with a smile. Well, the ancients didn't like it either. Therefore, after that, the souls were no longer free. They usually lived in a place called the Netherworld, which was exactly the same as the world of the living. They had everything they needed in life. The souls lived normally in the Netherworld. Only during the New Year and festivals could they return to the human world to visit their loved ones. They've only come back a few times of air to see if we the living are doing well. Therefore, in order to make the deceased feel at ease, we will set up a table of good dishes when they return. This is to worship the ancestors. The children and the people outside the fence heaved a sigh of relief. Gu Shaoxian had used some kind of martial arts, but his voice seemed to have a life of its own. It even changed according to the context. Every time he talked about the soul, Gu Shaoxuan's voice would become distant and close, as if he was a ghost. Therefore, even under the scorching sun, everyone still felt like they were in the same place. However, Jiruo was a little confused. Why did this guy look at him after saying a few words? The class was not very long. When Gu Shaoxian announced the end of the class, the children still felt that they had not had enough. Teacher Ya suddenly asked timidly, can the dead really come back? Of course. I firmly believe that, Gu Shaoxian said with certainty. Can they come back to life? Arya, did someone important pass away? Gu Shaoxian asked. It's my grandmother who loves me dearly, teacher, how can I revive grandma? Through reincarnation, Gu Shaoxian said with a smile, I'm going through reincarnation. But this is what I'm going to talk about in class tomorrow. Let's stop here for today, haha. What is reincarnation? Gu Shaoxian thought for a moment and took out the withered flower that he had brought. The light in the classroom flickered as the children widened their eyes. The withered flower had actually regained its vitality in Gu Shaoxuan's hands. Jiruo and the others were shocked. Martial intent affecting reality, this was a technique at the peak of the celestial jade realm. No, that wasn't right. It was probably very difficult for martial will alone to make a dead object regain its vitality. Martial arts divine power, the plan seems to be whispered. Chapter 232, Chapter 232, Demonic Creatures Invasion, 2. Chapter 232, Demonic Creatures Invasion, 2. Gu Shaoxian handed the flowers in his hand to Ya and smiled. This is reincarnation. Ya took the flowers in a daze. The faint fragrance carried a little fishy smell. Ya had never seen such flowers before. What flower is this? Resurrection lily, the flower of death that blooms by the river of forgetfulness. It looks good. Right? So, death is not a terrible thing. The dead can continue to live in the world after death, and they can also be reborn through reincarnation. This is the ancient people's fantasy of death, and it is also the death culture that has been passed down in our great Xia. Gu Shaoxian looked at Jiruo and smiled. To me, death is as romantic as a fairy tale. How was it? Before Jiruo could speak, Liang Shixian pulled Gu Shaoxian and said excitedly, well said, well said. Mr. Gu, can I ask you some questions about how to control the learning atmosphere in class, and... Gu Shaoxian was stunned for a moment before he suddenly yawned. Oh, I just remembered. I didn't sleep last night, so I'm suddenly so sleepy. I'll go back and sleep first. You didn't sleep last night, and you only remembered now. However, Liang Shixian could also see that the other party did not seem to want to communicate with him, so he said regretfully, all right then. Take care, Teacher Gu. Okay, goodbye. Gu Shaoxian did not answer Liang Shixian's question, as if he did not want to communicate with anyone other than Jiruo. Carrying the black coffin on his back, Gu Shaoxian turned around and left. Gu Shaoxuan's lips moved slightly when his back was facing the crowd. Jiruo heard Gu Shaoxuan's voice. I know you have something to ask me. That's right, it's what you think. But now is not the time to talk. I will wait for you at the reservoir outside the village at midnight. Secret voice transmission. Also, what do I want to ask you? Jiruo felt baffled. He glanced at Liang Shixian, who was a little disappointed, and pursed his lips. Based on Gu Shaoxuan's attitude towards Liang Shixian, Jiruo decided dash. Class monitor, he's so arrogant. Don't be sad. We won't play with him and isolate him. Don't play with him, isolate him. Liang Shixian sighed, Jiruo, when are you going to grow up? When the time comes, Jiruo thought seriously. It was only 2:50 in the afternoon when Gu Xiaoxian finished his class. Next was the last lesson of the day, Ji Ruo's physical education. Niuli, where are we going today? Teacher Ji, you're asking me. That's right. You're familiar with this area. If I don't ask you, who should I ask? Then, go to the reservoir to play with water. Niuli asked tentatively. I went yesterday. Let's play something else today. The two children were squatting behind the desk, deep in thought. The people from the spicy dumpling group were speechless. Is this how physical education is taught? President, if you really can't think of anything, why don't you switch classes with me? Egg fried rice couldn't help but ask. I'll teach you some math, the children wailed. I'm not sick, Ji Ruo raised an eyebrow. What do I need to change? Egg fried rice didn't react for a moment and said blankly, why can't I change if I'm not sick? When the math teacher wants to teach the PE teacher, doesn't he always say, the PE teacher is sick today, so we'll have math for this class? Oh. That's not what I meant. We have to let the children develop in all aspects, Ji Ruo said bitterly. How can we just have cultural classes? He wanted to say that this PE class was just for bringing the children to play. What did it have to do with moral, intellectual, physical, artistic, and labor? However, before he could finish speaking, a series of ear-piercing screeches suddenly came from above his head. Everyone hurriedly ran out of the classroom and looked up. Countless blood-red devil birds circled above the 8 treasures stronghold. Their eyes were filled with scarlet light and killing intent. Liang Shixian frowned. Oh no, the martial artists guarding the city must have killed too many of them, causing these demons to counterattack. The devil bird circled around for a while before diving down abruptly, neighing incessantly. The children were panicking, and the adults in the village could not help but be afraid. There were so many demons. If they were allowed to break into the village. Buzz. With a strange buzzing sound, 5 dazzling golden lights soared into the sky and condensed into a translucent golden barrier above the 8 treasures stronghold. That was the power of the holy image. Bang 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 bang. The ground shook continuously as a large number of demon birds fell down like dumplings. The holy statue barrier seemed to still have a powerful rebound force. The falling demon bird's tendons and bones were broken, and it could not rise again. To be able to trigger such a strong rebound from the statue, it was enough to prove that these demon birds had eaten human flesh. The villagers, who had recovered from their shock, were furious. They took out all kinds of farming tools from their homes and came to the edge of the barrier. They dragged the heavily injured but not dead demon birds into the barrier one by one, roaring and besieging them to death. The fact that these demon birds could come here meant that the farmland around the 8 treasures stronghold had been harmed. Those villagers who went out to work were probably. We'll help too. Su Dong shouted and rolled up his sleeves, ready to rush forward to help. However, Liang Shixian pulled him back and frowned. Student fried pork with green pepper, what we need to do now is to look after the children and make sure they don't run around. After stabilizing the children, he would go and help. Those scarlet demon birds only had the strength of about 1 star. The holy statue barrier could block them. This all right then. A moment later, all the children squatted around the statue. This was the safest place in the 8 treasures stronghold. They were children, the important protected objects of the holy statue. At the critical moment, the children were very obedient. Although they were afraid, they still chose to listen to the arrangements. All right, leave a few people here to look after the children. The others will follow me to help. Liang Shixian quickly arranged the manpower. Compared to Ji Ruo, he was more familiar with the abilities of the club members. The members who were selected to help were very excited, while those who were not selected were a little disappointed, but they did not say anything. At this moment, the golden light emitted by the holy statue suddenly became even more dazzling. 5 huge phantoms condensed in the sky above the 8 treasures stronghold. They were the manifestation of the martial will on the holy statues protect the country and protect the people of Great Xia. It was the obsession of every holy statue condensed into golden clothes that transcended life and death. The 5 shadows roared at the devil birds, offending my Great Xia, even if it's far away, you must be punished. When Liang Shixian and the others saw this, their hearts surged and they said excitedly, let's go. We can't let the statue carry everything. However, before they could leave the holy statue's protection, the demon birds paused for a moment before quickly fleeing. Wait, why did these demons run away? Liang Shixian was also stunned as he watched the demon birds flee. These demons came to send a wave of death and then ran away. What was the point? It was true that low-level demons had low intelligence, but it was not to the extent of class monitor. They're back. Chu Fei exclaimed. Not long after those devil birds left, they actually made a comeback again. Not only that, but they were also grabbing irregularly shaped a translucent gel. What are they grabbing? Whoosh. As he spoke, a demon bird suddenly loosened its claws, and the translucent gel in its claws fell from the sky. The statue did not react. The protective range of the holy statue was limited. In essence, it was a martial artist who had long died. Naturally, it would not have much intelligence. Beyond a certain range, the holy idol would not take effect. If no human had been killed, the holy idol would not take effect. A loud explosion sounded, and the house was blown into ruins on the spot. Liang Shixian was furious. Damn it! He actually dropped a special slime. Return to defense. Go back and defend. Jiruo, your speed is fast. I'll have to trouble you to help block it. Wait. Where is Jiruren? The tremors of the earth became more intense, and Niuli trembled. Teacher Ji just ran away. Escape? That's impossible. Chapter 233, Chapter 233, Replicate Classic, 1. Chapter 233, Replicate Classic, 1. The slimes that had undergone some unknown modification were thrown down from the sky by the magic birds. They exploded after being hit. Slime was the lowest level of magic and had almost no intelligence to speak of. They were elemental life forms without biological cell structures and could only act on instinct. They would eat when they were hungry and sleep when they were sleeping. Because of its slow movement speed, the slime could not hurt humans. It was precisely because the slimes that fell from the sky like this would not activate the guardian ability of the icon. The icon did not care about the slimes at all. At this moment, the slime's body was injected with a power that was completely opposite to their own elemental type. It was still fine to stabilize the current state, but once they were impacted, the elements would intensify and cause an explosion. Houses collapsed one after another, and the villagers began to get injured. Only the children were protected by Liang Shixian and the others, so they did not suffer any injuries. Jiruo is definitely not that kind of person. Liang Shixian's expression was a little ugly. We've experienced even more tragic scenes than this. He definitely wouldn't run away. Su Dong muttered softly, we didn't say that the president ran away at the last minute, but the problem was, where was the president now? Jiruo should be. Before Liang Shixian could come up with a good excuse, he suddenly heard a very high-tech mechanical synthesized voice coming from somewhere. The dazzling light attracted everyone's attention, but they could not see who was in the light. When the light dissipated, everyone could see the figure in full armor. The armor looked very high-tech, but the main style was more like a daoist robe. There was also a large yin-yang taiji-like decoration on the chest. The armored man pointed his fingers at the sky like a sword and shouted, a puny little devil dares to offend the might of our Grand Xia. I, the armored warrior, will kill all of you here in the next few days. Liang Shixian's mouth twitched. Where did Jiruo get such an outfit from? Stop fooling around, Jiruo, come down and help. I'm not Jiruo, I'm the companion of justice, the armored warrior. Jiruo refused to admit it. Liang Shixian opened his mouth. The pencil case on your belt was a gift from me. Nonsense. This is not a pencil case, this is my transformation belt. As he spoke, his palm brushed past his waist and picked up a card. On the card was a cute black mystic cat. The mechanical voice sounded again, and the style of the armor was slightly adjusted. Everyone looked at Jiruo with a faint sense of disgust. Jiruo, who had changed his armor form, said in a low voice, after years of hard work, I finally combined the solitary finger and the lion's roar into one. Now, I finally have a chance to use them. Everyone was confused. Although they didn't know what kind of martial arts the solitary finger and the lion's roar were, just from the names, everyone guessed that they should be a finger technique and a sound wave martial art. Everyone could not help but be curious. These two martial arts seemed to be completely unrelated. What kind of form would they fuse in? Jiruo stretched out his hand towards the demons, his index finger slightly moving as he shouted, come over here. So this was how it was fused. Lion's roar technique's main purpose was to roar, and one yang finger was to hook the finger, right? But to be honest, Jiruo's voice was really loud. A loud sound erupted, and a sound wave swept out like a substance. It even moved some of the slimes that were in the process of falling. Then, something magical happened. The slimes and the demon birds in the sky became extremely angry after being roared by Jiruo. Especially the slimes. They were obviously in an unstable state and would explode if they were hit, but after being shouted at by Jiruo, they fell from the sky and stopped exploding. Instead, they forced themselves to maintain an increasingly unstable form and crawled crazily in the direction of Jiruo, leaving sticky marks on the ground. The demon birds also targeted Jiruo. Perhaps because the area was too large and there were too many of them, the taunt effect on the demon birds was not very strong. At least they did not launch another suicide attack. Otherwise, if they could activate the defensive ability of the holy statue again, it would not be so troublesome. The slimes thrown by the magic birds landed on Jiruo, and Jiruo started to do Tai Chi. A slime fell and was lifted up by Jiruoking. Then, Jiruoking turned into a spinning top, and the falling momentum was completely dissipated. The slime state became stable. Jiruo's eyes narrowed as he locked onto the target. I'll return it to you. The slime rose into the air again. A magic bird couldn't dodge in time and was hit by the slime. It didn't know Taiji Fist, so it couldn't borrow strength to fight. The slime suffered a violent impact and exploded. Then, because the magic birds were too close to each other, the slime's explosion triggered a chain reaction, and a vast and gorgeous fireworks festival seemed to rise in the sky. Countless devil birds were killed and fell, clearing the sky. Everyone in the 8 Treasures stronghold stared blankly at the fireworks festival above their heads, forgetting their fear for a moment. It's so beautiful. Chu Fei murmured softly. Niu Li, Ya, and the other children stared at Jiruo with shining eyes, excitedly shouting the name of the armored warrior. I am the embodiment of justice. The nemesis of evil. Jiruo made a handsome pose that made the children cheer. Where there is evil, there will be armored warriors. Goodbye, everyone. In the dazzling light, Jiruo quietly left the scene, cancelled his transformation, and wiped some dust on his face from the ground. He lifted a collapsed wall with one hand and lay down in it. He covered himself with the wall and shouted for help. Help! Is there anyone? Save me! As he called for help, Jiruo thought proudly, the classic exit of the Masked Knight, perfect. Luo Qian had always been one of those who had a strong sense of immersion. This little fellow was pushing against the wall beside Jiruo, trying to push the wall that was pressing down on Jiruo away. Meow dash, master, don't be afraid. I'll save you soon. What are you blindly bringing in? Liang Shixian and the others heard the sound and looked at Jiruo, who was pressed under the broken wall, dumbfounded. Jiruo said in surprise, class monitor, please save me. Liang Shixian took a deep breath and lifted the broken wall with one hand. Before Jiruo could come out, he put it down again and spread his hands out. He didn't seem to have said anything, but at the same time, he seemed to have said everything. Jiruo, what are you playing at? Liang Shixian sighed and said, stop fooling around. Come out and save the other villagers with us. President, you were so strong just now, but why didn't you come and meet us directly? Su Dong said sincerely. What just now? I was pinned under the broken wall at the beginning. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Jiruo tried to quibble. Can this broken wall hold you down? If I say I can, then I can. Chapter 234, Chapter 234, Ignoring Her. Chapter 234, Ignoring Her. With the disaster averted, Jiruo stopped fooling around and followed everyone to save the villagers. This disaster came out of nowhere. Fortunately, it was resolved in time. The villagers only suffered some minor injuries, and the children were all unharmed. In other words, the damage to the houses and roads was more serious. Slime was an elemental life form, so its body was not hard. The explosion damage was actually a shockwave, and it only dealt 1 damage. Therefore, the explosion just now only looked scary. The actual damage of a single target might not even be comparable to that of a fragment grenade. It might not be able to kill anyone, but it would be easy to push down the wall. Fellow villager, hang in there. I'll save you now. The spicy hot dumpling team members wandered among the ruins after the explosion, constantly rescuing the unfortunate villagers who were crushed by the collapsed houses. Strange, such a big thing happened in the stockade, why aren't the martial artists stationed back? Jiruo mumbled in confusion as he rescued the man. When Liang Shixian heard this, he could not help but frown and say, indeed. Logically speaking, with such a large number of devil birds attacking, they should have returned long ago. Was he being held back by something? Or do you think that you don't have to worry because the statue is here? Nearly 20% of the houses in the 8 Treasures stronghold were destroyed in this sudden attack. Due to the protection of the holy statue and the timely handling of the situation by Jiruo, the damage was not too great. While Spicy Hot Dumpling was rescuing the villagers, the battered martial artists who were stationed there returned one after another. When they returned to the village and saw the situation, they felt deeply remorseful. However, since it had already happened, it was useless to blame themselves. Therefore, they followed suit. Martial artists were all physically strong, and they were especially efficient in clearing the ruins. Not long after, all the villagers trapped in the ruins were rescued. After that, it was time to count the casualties and rebuild after the disaster. Brother Hu, why are you guys only back now? We found traces of high-level demon beasts nearby. Hu Yonglin explained guiltily. The 8 Treasures stronghold was the place where the new secret realm had descended, and all the surrounding demons had been strengthened. Ordinary demons were still fine, but if they were high-level demons, they would be even more dangerous after being strengthened. Therefore, to be safe, they all moved out to kill them in advance. Who knew that the other party actually had high intelligence and could even use a method similar to mental control? When they were about to be killed, they controlled a large number of strengthened demon birds to attack the 8 treasures stronghold. Hu Yonglin and the others wanted to retreat and defend, but they were held back by the demon. In addition to the devil bird, the devil also controlled the devil rats, devil mosquitoes, and other low-level devils to delay Hu Yonglin and the others. Although they had successfully killed the demon in the end, it was already too late for them to return. I see. Liang Shixian was enlightened. I was wondering why those demon birds were so desperate to attack the holy barrier. So they were being controlled. Fortunately, you guys are here. Otherwise thank you. Hu Yonglin said solemnly. You're welcome. This is what we should do. Oh, right. Where's Gu Shaoxian? Hu Yonglin suddenly asked. Although that fellow's personality was rather strange, he was still a Starjade Realm martial artist. Was he the one who helped to resolve the beast tide just now? No, no. It's the armored warrior. A child imitated Jiruo's actions and said, the armored warrior is amazing. In an instant, these bad birds were turned into fireworks. Armored warrior. Hu Yonglin listened to the villagers' descriptions and finally remembered. Wasn't he talking about the strange person they met last night? So it's him, but why was he dressed like that? Hu Yonglin thought. Also, why did he put that thing in the coffin? He seemed to have misunderstood something. Jiruo was a little puzzled. Did Hu Yonglin not know what was in the coffin that Gu Shaoxian was carrying? However, even though he was confused, he didn't take the initiative to admit it. It felt pretty good to hear the person next to him praise him. Gu Shaoxian carried the black coffin on his back and silently looked at the villagers who had died miserably in front of him. A rat-type demonic creature was gnawing on the corpse. Gu Shaoxian was clearly standing behind it, but it did not seem to notice him at all. That's why I said no one knows who will come first tomorrow or an accident. Gu Shaoxian said softly and pinched the demonic creature. Destroying a corpse is disrespectful. Be careful in your next life. As he said that, he spat out a force from his palm and actually directly shattered the struggling and roaring demon rat into pieces. Then, Gu Shaoxian picked up the broken corpse with a face full of pity and walked into the forest. In the forest, there were incense, candles, paper money, and all kinds of funeral supplies that had been prepared long ago. Gu Shaoxian usually did not live in the village. Because he was in this line of work, the villagers felt that Gu Shaoxian was unlucky. Gu Shaoxian was already used to this. He skillfully helped the dead villagers tidy up their remains. Then, he pulled out a long knife from the side of the black coffin, cut down the tree trunk, and hollowed out the trunk to make a simple coffin. I'm sorry, the conditions are really limited. After a simple ceremony, he buried the dead. Although he was not related to the deceased, Gu Shaoxian still communicated with the deceased seriously and asked if there was anything he needed his help with. The dead were speechless. Sigh, it still doesn't work? What was wrong? Or did that rule not appear? He sighed. A moment later, Gu Shaoxian burned incense and paper for the new grave in front of him. He stood up and said, I'm sorry I can't accompany you for too long. I still have to help others collect their corpses. Please live well in that world and rest in peace. Gu Shaoxian turned around and left. At this moment, a gentle breeze suddenly blew in the forest. The leaves rustled in the wind. Save me, I don't want to die yet. In a trance, Gu Shaoxian seemed to hear someone whispering in the wind. He suddenly turned his head and looked at the new grave. What did you say? Save me. The sound was mixed in the wind, sometimes far and sometimes near, very weak. If Gu Shaoxian was not weak, he might not have been able to hear it. Gu Shaoxian was ecstatic and asked excitedly, what are you now? Have you become a ghost? You can talk to me? Can you tell me what that world is like? Was there really a world after death? Can you help me find someone? Is there anyone who can save me? The other party kept muttering. Gu Shaoxian realized that something was wrong. Not the dead in the grave. Frowning, he walked around the new grave. The sound in the wind gradually grew louder. A moment later, on the other side of the forest, Gu Shaoxian saw the dying villager. So he didn't die. Gu Shaoxian was a little disappointed. There was a long blood-red trail behind the villager. It was obvious that he was lucky enough to survive the attack just now, but he was also seriously injured. Judging from the direction they were heading, it seemed like they wanted to return to the 8 treasures stronghold. You relied on your strong desire to live to climb all the way here. Gu Shaoxian rubbed his chin. It seems like I need to have some sort of obsession to become a ghost. Please, save me. When the villager saw Gu Shaoxian, his eyes suddenly lit up with a strong desire to live. My wife, my child still waiting for me at home. I can't die, please, save me. The villagers begged. Gu Shaoxian looked at the other party in silence. A strange buzzing sound rang out and the smell of blood attracted the demons. It was the tail stinger hornet. When the villagers heard the commotion, their eyes were filled with fear. Puff. A poisonous tail spike flew over and pierced the back of the villager's head, instantly killing him. Before he died, he glared at Gu Shaoxian with hatred in his eyes. He seemed to be asking, "Why didn't you save me?" Gu Shaoxian just watched. With his strength, he could naturally react, but he did not help. "Does it hurt?" Gu Shaoxian asked. No one answered. "I will avenge you and bury you. Rest in peace." As he spoke, Gu Shaoxian raised his hand and smashed the tail stinger hornets into pieces. However, at this moment, "Why didn't you save me?" An abnormally illusory figure appeared above the villager's corpse and pounced towards Gu Shaoxian with a fierce look. Gu Shaoxian was stunned. The fierce-looking villager's soul was halfway through its attack when its abnormally illusory figure completely dissipated. A gentle breeze blew against Gu Shaoxian's face. His breathing quickened, and his eyes were feverish. Yes. There really was. It's really the case. In this sudden small beast tide, 3 villagers of the 8 treasures stronghold went missing. Although everyone was sad, they still had to live. After this beast tide, the number of strengthened demons around the 8 treasures stronghold decreased sharply. In addition, the new mystical realm had stopped descending for some unknown reason. The situation was finally under control. The post-disaster reconstruction work went very smoothly, and the 8 treasures stronghold returned to its former peace. The team of experts sent by the higher UPS arrived and started to study the new mystical realm that had stopped descending for no reason. It's really like a person sleeping, but how is this possible? The experts looked at the strange data fluctuations detected by the instrument and exclaimed, "LVE lived for a long time." This was the first time they had encountered such a situation. Although he didn't understand why this happened, an expert was an expert after all. After a simple discussion, they solemnly told the villagers and the martial artists stationed there that they could not relax their vigilance now. The beast tide was very likely to appear again. When the secret realm descended, it would release a special power that was very beneficial to the demons. It could allow the demons to evolve in a very short period of time. Now that the secret realm had stopped descending for some reason, and that power was no longer released, those demons who had tasted the sweetness would definitely be restless. We need to increase patrols in the near future. Also, please find a few people who are familiar with the surrounding situation to bring us around. We want to study why the mythical realm stopped descending and see if the situation can be replicated. No problem. Hu Yonglin nodded and then transferred 2 martial artists to follow the expert team. Of course, Ji Ruo knew about the arrival of the experts and what they were here for. However, he did not tell the experts that the mythical realm had been sealed by him. The secret realm was sealed by Ji Ruo with a blanket, nailed with nails, and covered with earth and stone. Mystic realms did not have self-awareness. In theory, it was impossible to break the seal with one's own will. As long as it was not destroyed by external forces, it was equivalent to a permanent seal. If he told these experts the truth, they would definitely not be able to resist studying it. In that case, it was very likely that Ji Ruo's seal would be destroyed. Moreover, Ji Ruo could not explain why he could seal the mystic realm with a quilt, so not reporting it was the best choice. Chapter 235, Chapter 235, Spiritless Protection, 1. Chapter 235, Spiritless Protection, 1. In the past 2 days, Ji Ruo had helped rebuild the village in the day, and at night, he had transformed into an armored warrior to kill demons and monsters around the village. At the same time, he had also helped to search for the 3 missing villagers. Unfortunately, the search turned up nothing. Even if Ji Ruo used absolute direction to search, she still couldn't find the bodies of the 3 missing villagers. The accuracy of the direction correction was still too low. After the reconstruction work was completed, Ji Ruo returned to the classroom as a substitute teacher. "Teacher Ji, have you seen Teacher Gu?" Niu Li looked haggard as he found Ji Ruo and asked. He had asked similar questions countless times in the past 2 days. One of the 3 missing villagers was Niu Li's father. "All right, thank you, Teacher Ji." Looking at Niu Li's dejected back, Liang Shixian could not help but say, "Jiruo, where did Gu Shaoxian go? He had already left before the beast tide appeared that day and has not returned until now. Could it be?" "Probably not." Ji Ruo said, "He has the strength of the celestial jade realm and has cultivated some kind of martial arts divine power. Ordinary demons are not his match. If he doesn't come back he should have left, right? Normally speaking, the highest level of martial arts was perfection, and beyond perfection, it could be called martial arts divine power. Gone. I heard from Brother Hu and the others that the guy has no fixed residence," Ji Ruo said. "He's been wandering around the border to promote his funeral business. He's very unpopular. He had only stopped at the 8 treasures stronghold by chance, or else he would have left long ago. In fact, Jiruo was also very sure that Gu Shaoxian had left. Before the beast tide, Gu Shaoxian had asked him to meet at the reservoir, as if he had something important to tell Jiruo. However, because of Gu Shaoxuan's attitude towards Liang Shixian, Jiruo did not plan to go to the appointment at first. Then, there was the beast tide. Jiruo and the others had been busy for the past 2 days. Thus, Jiruo had forgotten about the agreement. When he thought about it again, it was because Niu Li kept asking him if he knew where Gu Shaoxian was. Yesterday, Jiruo had also taken the time to go to the reservoir, but Gu Shaoxian was no longer there. That person's personality is really bad. I didn't see him come out to help when the beast tide appeared. Liang Shixian sighed and said, "Don't say that. He's not a martial artist stationed there. He just happened to pass by. He's not obligated to help. But this is also. Forget it. He can do whatever he wants," Jiruo said. "Let's go back to class. I'll take this class." 1 small red flower could be exchanged for 2 red scarves. During this period of time, he had almost farmed all the small red flowers in the 8 treasures stronghold. As a teacher, he wanted to do something for the children. Jiruo walked into the classroom. The children were comforting Niu Li in low voices. When Ya saw Jiruo come in, she couldn't help but ask softly, "Teacher Ji, does the world after death really exist?" Subjectively speaking, Jiruo didn't think that it existed, but in fact, whether it was the special effect of the red scarf or the white cat that had the same body as Luo Qian, it seemed to tell Jiruo that there was indeed a soul in this world. This was also the reason why he exchanged for red scarves for the children. Of course it exists. Jiruo smiled and said, "After a person passes away, they can go to heaven. There are all the beautiful things in heaven, and the soul can live a carefree life there." "Teacher, can I go to heaven? I want to see Daddy." Niu Li suddenly asked. Jiruo was silent for a moment. "I'm sorry, I can't. Only good people can go to heaven. Bad people have to go to hell to be punished." "Student Niu Li, are you a good child? Then live well and try not to disappoint Daddy. Be a good child and don't make Daddy worry." "Good." Niu Li agreed seriously. Then, he asked, "Teacher, how long do I have to be a good child before I can go to heaven?" Jiruo pondered for a moment. "It'll take a long time. If you keep thinking about it, you won't be able to go to heaven in the future. Because this is the condition to go to the heavenly state." Jiruo rubbed Niu Li's head and said, "If you really miss your father, write him a letter. Tell him that you miss him and that you will work hard to be a good child." "Write a letter? Can Daddy see it?" "Of course, I promise you." Jiruo then turned to the children in the class and said, "Does anyone have anything to say to their loved ones? If you have something to say, write it down. Write down what you want to say and send the letter." The title of foreign affairs speaker continued to take effect, and the influence of his words increased. It made Jiruo's voice sound inexplicable and could make people subconsciously trust her. Niu Li was in a daze. The other children were a little confused. Only Ya, after a short period of thought, began to write. Ya was a girl and matured more quickly than boys of the same age. Although she did not know many words, she could still write some words. A moment later, Ya finished writing the letter and asked Jiruo, "Teacher Ji, where should I mail this letter?" "Kingdom of Heaven." "Are you done?" Jiruo's palm lit up with flames and he said, "Burn it if you're done." Ya was stunned. If the address is heavenly state, the postman will be very troubled. Ya burned the letter as if she understood something. Jiruo solemnly tied the red scarves on the children. Other than Niu Li, after every child put on the red scarf, a golden figure would flash behind them. Behind Ya, the old grandmother nodded and smiled kindly at Jiruo. However, there was nothing behind Niu Li. The special effect of the red scarf could even extract the white cat from Rosie's body. Under normal circumstances, there should not be any means to stop the heroic spirit from protecting the wearer. Why didn't a heroic spirit appear behind Niu Li? Was it because his father did not want to protect him? Or could it be his father didn't die? "Jiruo, what are you trying to say?" "I'm still in class." "Class monitor, I suspect that Niu Li's father is still alive." Jiruo said seriously. Liang Shixian looked at Jiruo and suddenly sighed, "Jiruo, I know you're doing this for Niu Li's own good, but this kind of thing accept reality, Jiruo." "Class monitor, do you believe me? Help me look after the students. I'll go out and look for them. I'll go with you. If you want to go, you can go. Let's set off tonight." Jiruo looked at the spicy hot dumpling and was speechless. "Why are you all here?" Chapter 236, Chapter 236, Demon Ants Foraging, 1. Chapter 236, Demon Ants Foraging, 1. With just the two of us, even if we don't sleep or rest, how far can we search? Jiruo, there is strength in numbers. There's still Rosie's, Jiruo mumbled. Meow dash, yes. And me. President, we're a team. How can we let you and the class monitor do everything? Sudong said. We want to help too. Our main goal tonight is to find people, not to kill demons. Don't worry, we won't hold you back. Chu Fei also said, that's right. We are also the children's teachers. We also want to do something for them. Jiruo rubbed his nose and said, all right, everyone follow me closely. Didn't you say you were looking for someone? They should be spread out. Previously, Jiruo had also used absolute sense of direction when he was looking for the missing villagers. However, it was not just because the keywords were wrong or something else. The results of the 2 consecutive throwing shoes to ask for directions were completely opposite. It could be said that it had not been corrected. That's why Jiruo can't find the shaman. But now, he began to throw his shoes at them. The location of Niu Li's father's corpse. Jiruo threw out 2 shoes at once. The 2 shoes were pointing in opposite directions. As expected, the keyword is wrong. Jiruo thought to himself. Where is Niu Li's father? He threw the shoe again. The 2 clean sneakers spun in the air. When they landed on the ground, the heels were pressed together, and the tips of the shoes formed an angle of about 450. Jiruo noted down the angle and threw the shoe over and over again, roughly locking onto the direction. Everyone, follow me. Scratching his head, Egg Fried Rice muttered, one suddenly don't want to go indeed, this is too hasty. Red Braised Pork added. Liang Shixian sighed and said, let's keep up, everyone. You'll understand once you get to know each other. Jiruo's luck has always been pretty good. Although he looks childish when he throws his shoes, he's really accurate in finding the right direction. Back in the Myriad Beast Mountain, it was because of Jiruo throwing his shoes that we managed to escape danger many times. Chu Fei said in surprise, is the thing so powerful? Yes, Liang Shixian sighed. So if Jiruo says that fate is in our hands, then God is probably right. Let's go. Because the spicy hot and spicy dumpling was fully mobilized, Jiruo couldn't sneak out anymore. He could only bring everyone to the entrance of the stronghold to register and report. The higher UPS were very concerned about the special situation in the new secret realm of the 8 Treasures stronghold. The strengthened demons in the surroundings had been mostly cleared. The weakest among Jiruo and the others had the strength of the Chi Pulse realm, so they did not have to worry too much. Moreover, they were out looking for people out of good intentions. Be careful. Hu Yonglin said seriously, it's good to have this intention, but don't force yourself if you can't find it. It's been almost 3 days. The hope is very slim. Yes, I know. Don't worry, brother Hu. We know what to do. We're also quite short on manpower now. I'm sorry that we can't go with you, but in the past few days, yes, that armored warrior has always been active outside. If you encounter any difficulties, you can try to seek his help. Hu Yonglin sighed and said, I think I know why he dressed like that. With his reputation at the border, no matter where he goes, people won't like him. If he dresses like that, at least people won't look at him through colored glasses. Jiruo smiled and didn't comment. After reporting to the warriors stationed there, Jiruo and the others left the 8 Treasures stronghold. It was the first time that Sudong and the others left the 8 Treasures stronghold at night. They were curious about everything along the way. Although they did not run around, they still discussed in low voices. 2 hours later, Jiruo and the others had completely left the 8 Treasures stronghold's area of control. However, absolute direction and Luo Shi's enhanced 6 senses were still pointing forward. Oh right, Jiruo, why haven't I seen Ji Xiaoxiao these days? On the way, Liang Shixian asked curiously. They hadn't seen Ji Xiaoxiao since they came to the 8 Treasures stronghold. They hadn't seen her at all in the past 2 days. Did he go back to school? No. Jiruo glanced at the shadow under his feet and said, that little thing has been practicing recently. He wants to fight side by side with me. Practice? What kind of martial arts? Liang Shixian was puzzled. My inner demon told me that it can't become stronger through regular cultivation. Maybe. Jiruo didn't say much, so Liang Shixian didn't know that not only Ji Xiaoxiao, but even Chen Mo hadn't stayed in Jiruo's hair all this time. The 2 inner demons, one old and one young, had recently gathered together to study the Shadow Martial Dao. Jiruo had just unlocked the Shadow Martial Dao and hadn't studied it thoroughly, so he didn't say anything. At this moment, Rosie, who was scouting ahead, suddenly turned around and whispered, Meow, Master, I found something. Oh? What did you find? Jiruo quickly squatted down. Rosie pointed to a bush in front of them and said, Meow, there's a faint human blood scent here, and a large amount of disgusting demonic scent. Master, look dash. She pushed aside the grass and let Jiruo see a group of 1-meter-long demonic ants moving in an orderly manner in the distance. They carried all kinds of plants and wood on their backs. Wherever they passed, the white devil ants that were still empty would use their ferocious mouthparts to bite off the tree trunks. Then, they would work together to carry the tree trunks on their bodies and follow the main group forward. Rosie leaned closer to the grass and sniffed it carefully. She tilted her head as if she was listening to something. Meow dash, sister said that it seems to be a group of white devil ants. Other than the queen ant, there's nothing to be afraid of. Master, what did he mean by not being afraid? It's just very weak. The young man turned around and said seriously, everyone, be quiet. We might be reaching our destination soon. Su Dong and the others quickly squatted down. They all saw the formation of white devil ants returning with a full load. White devil ants. Liang Shixian frowned. The person we're looking for shouldn't have anything to do with these white devil ants, right? The white demon ants don't feed on flesh and blood. Their main food is plant and wood fiber or half fiber. They aren't very aggressive and rarely eat humans. Even holy statues won't react to them. At this moment, a piece of flat wood suddenly fell from the middle of the white devil ants formation due to the jolt. It looked like someone had cut off a part of the tree trunk. Rosie meowed, meow dash, master. The smell of blood is getting stronger. Chapter 237, Chapter 237, Don't be too lonely as an ant, 1. Chapter 237, Don't be too lonely as an ant, 1. After the wooden board slid down, not to mention Luo Qian, Jiruo and the others also smelled the smell of blood in the air, as well as a faint rotten smell. Liang Shixian was puzzled. Strange. Doesn't the white demon ant not eat flesh? How could it be? It's true that the white demon ants don't eat flesh and blood, Jiruo said after some thought. But what if their purpose isn't flesh and blood in the first place? You mean? Su Dong analyzed, there's still soil on that tree trunk. It's probably dug out by these white devil ants. Their target should be that tree trunk, the falling wooden planks, the smell of blood wafting from the tree trunk. The tree trunk must have been hollowed out by someone, and there was a corpse inside. That's a coffin. To be able to hide a corpse in a coffin, it must be a human. He was looking for Niu Li's father. This direction was guided by absolute direction. In other words. Hey, wait, don't be so impulsive. Jiruo held Chu Fei down and said, there are only a dozen of us. There are at least hundreds of white devil ants here. Although their individual strength is not enough to be feared, if we really fight, they will definitely damage the corpses. We can't act rashly. Then tell me, what should we do now? They should be returning to their nest now. Jiruo thought for a moment and secretly applied the effects of camouflage and substitution on everyone. Everyone, follow me. Under Jiruo's lead, everyone came to the end of the group. Don't move yet. Jiruo said softly. Then, he suddenly attacked. When the last demon ant in the line was not paying attention, he pulled it into the grass along with the branches on its back. Without waiting for it to struggle and resist, he raised his palm like a knife and chopped at the joint of the white devil ant's neck, beheading it. After that, Jiruo removed the skull of the white demon ant. Although the white demon ant was a demon, its body structure was not much different from ordinary termites except for its larger size and stronger strength. In essence, it was still an ant. However, due to its large size, in order to be able to move normally, its body surface was actually a layer of hard exoskeleton. It had many joints and was easy to move. Jiruo took off the exoskeleton on the white devil ant's head and shook it randomly to get rid of the light purple mucus on it, then put it on his head. Everyone felt a chill down their spines. President, what are you doing? How disgusting. Only Liang Shixian was deep in thought after seeing Jiruo's actions. Then, he learned from Jiruo and pulled out a white devil ant, repeating Jiruo's actions. Everyone, move faster and pay attention to hiding. Don't be discovered by the white devil ants in front. Class monitor, what are we doing? Su Dong couldn't help but ask. Liang Shixian said seriously, we're already white devil ants now. Jiruo was amused. He looked at Liang Shixian and said gratefully, class monitor, you've grown up too. Can I not grow up with you? Liang Shixian said angrily. A female club member with the code name Boiled Cabbage felt disgusted and couldn't accept it. She asked, the two of you, although the white devil ant is not a powerful devil, it is not a fool either. Can we sneak in like this? What if they find out? You said it yourself. The white devil ants aren't powerful monsters. We'll kill whoever finds out our true identities. Jiruo looked at them as if they were fools. Ah, this Boiled Cabbage opened his mouth, then why not just do it directly? It would also save him trouble. This is too disgusting. Safety first. I'm just trying. What if it works? Jiruo said. Hurry up, we don't have much time. 10 minutes later. The members of the spicy hot dumpling group each carried a piece of wood and followed the main group in front. The leader, Jiruo, warned seriously, everyone, remember our current identity. Spicy dumpling, human smoke, and fire, the White Devil Ants Worker Ant Division's action team. Everyone, behave naturally and don't expose your identity. You're the most arrogant one. The White Devil Ant is right in front of you. Is it really okay for you to explain the operation so loudly? As expected, the White Devil Ant in front heard the commotion and turned around in confusion. Jiruo and the others were forced to stop as well. Everyone's heart tightened. Sudong almost couldn't help but kill the White Demon Ant, but Liang Shixian stopped him. Liang Shixian was also a little nervous, but out of trust in Jiruo, he whispered, "Don't be anxious, let's see how Jiruo deals with it." When the White Devil Ant turned around, the first thing it saw was a pair of long legs in pants. It was obviously stunned for a moment, then slowly raised its head and looked at Jiruo. His big black eyes were filled with a human-like confusion. He seemed to be wondering why he had grown so tall after not seeing him for a while. Camouflage and substitution overlapped. In the eyes of the White Devil Ant, Jiruo and the others did indeed have the aura of the White Devil Ant. There were indeed tentacles on their heads, and they were carrying a lot of food on their bodies. Rounding up, Jiruo and the others were indeed the same kind of people in the eyes of the White Devil Ants. Hesitating for a moment, the White Ant stuck its head out towards Jiruo, the feelers on its head trembling. Jiruo, do it. White Devil Ants communicate through pheromones. Your language talent is not. Liang Shixian hadn't finished speaking when he saw Jiruo squatting in front of the White Devil Ant. The tentacles on the original self-made peeping Tom touched the White Devil Ant's tentacles. It's fine, it's fine. What can happen to us? What? How did we grow taller? You must have remembered wrongly. We've always been this tall. Oh? You want to grow taller too? Ask me if I have any tricks. Go to bed early and get up early. Eat more vegetables and exercise more. You can be as tall as me. Yes, you're right. It hasn't been peaceful outside recently, so we can't delay too much on the road. There's no need for an apology. If you really feel bad, just kowtow to me. It's not a big deal. I'll forgive you if you kowtow. Time is tight and the mission is heavy. Let's hurry back. Alright, that's it. We'll talk when we get back. Under everyone's dumbfounded expressions, Jiruo seemed to have really had a friendly conversation with the White Devil Ant. The White Devil Ant really did not suspect their identities. It even politely kowtowed to them. Then, the White Devil Ant turned around and sped up, using its tentacles to touch the White Devil Ant in front of it. A few minutes later, the entire team suddenly sped up. Jiruo clapped his hands and said, "Done. Let's go. Everyone." What the hell was it? Even Liang Shixian was a little stunned. You can really communicate with the White Demon Ants. They communicated using pheromones. You're a human, how can you talk to the White Devil Ants without any obstacles? Jiruo, what did you say? I didn't say much. This brother asked us if there was a problem. It seemed to have misunderstood something. Now that the misunderstanding has been resolved, go back early and rest early. President, these are White Devil Ants, Sudong mumbled. Jiruo's fingers flicked the tentacles on the original self-made helmet and said, "We are also White Devil Ants now. We have to learn to integrate into the group." Is this how you integrate into a group? Liang Shixian sighed and said, "You might think it's ridiculous, but as someone who has been through it before, I can tell you that I'm also confused about this kind of thing. I can't explain it in detail. Just treat it as Jiruo's talent in language." Jiruo seemed to have regained the feeling he had when he was in the Myriad Beast Mountain. He hopped and hopped along with the White Devil Ants towards their nest. As he walked, he hummed, "Raise your skull, let me see your face." Sudong couldn't help but complain, "President, how can you sing such a terrifying song with such a happy face?" "It's good to get used to it, it's good to get used to it," Liang Shixian sighed. Chapter 238, Chapter 238, Ownerless Incense, 1. Chapter 238, Ownerless Incense, 1. The people from Spicy Hot Dumpling felt disgusted by the thing covering their heads. Although they had even lied on feces in the simulation battle, in their opinion, the simulation battle was just a simulation. It didn't matter what happened in the simulation. After all, the status would refresh after leaving the battlefield. But reality was different. Disgusting was truly disgusting. Jiruo ignored them and followed the White Devil Ants to the nest. Jiruo originally thought that the nest of the White Devil Ants was underground, but in fact, it was indeed underground. They had hollowed out a small mountain that was more than 100 meters tall. The ant paths in the mountain were crisscrossed, and there was an unknown underground space below the horizon. The number of ant colonies was extremely large. The interior of the mountain was like a huge translucent glass mine. Looking up, one could even vaguely see the white devil ants in the passage above. There was a small hole at the top of the cave. Moonlight poured in and was reflected in the crystal glass, making the entire cave look quite bright. The white demon ants moved through the ant path in an orderly manner without interfering with each other. They were like a huge and precise instrument and its components. Liang Shixian explained, it said that monsters like the white demon ants were actually just ordinary termites thousands of years ago. They evolved under the influence of the arrival of the mythical realm, and their body size skyrocketed. They still maintained most of their habits from thousands of years ago. In order to support their fragile bodies, they evolved a hard exoskeleton, but because of this, they gained weight and easily collapsed the nest. Therefore, the queen ant let some worker ants evolve a special gland organ that allowed them to secrete a special mucus that crystallized the soft soil. Therefore, the current appearance of the nest was not naturally formed. Jiruo looked at Liang Shixian in surprise. Class monitor, you have quite a wide range of knowledge. I remember that this is knowledge that only second-year students will be involved in, right? Liang Shixian chuckled and said, as the class monitor, I have to learn more. Otherwise, if my classmates ask me questions in the future and I can't answer them, won't I become a joke? Moreover, the subject of dissecting demon creatures was actually quite interesting. Class monitor is awesome. Jiruo gave him a thumbs up and led the members of the club to follow the white devil ants to the lower level of the nest. These resources had to be transported to specific locations for storage. Jiruo had quite a good grasp of the knowledge of demon creatures. He knew that whether it was the white devil ant or any other ant tribe, the queen ant was the strongest existence in the entire tribe. However, most of the time, it only existed as a reproductive machine. Under normal circumstances, the ant queen only needed to do two things: eat, raw. Its descendants would be responsible for all its daily needs. Everyone, be careful next. Jiruo suddenly said in a serious tone, the villagers we are looking for should be in the place where the white demon ants store their supplies. Everyone, pay attention when the time comes. In order to make it easier for the queen ant to eat, the white devil ants would store their supplies very close to the queen ant. Judging from the scale of this ant nest, the ant queen probably had the strength of a 3-star or even a 4-star. Demons like the queen ant, which were unable to move, might not have strong individual combat abilities, but they could control an entire race. Naturally, their mental strength was abnormally strong. To put it simply, the ant queen was very good at mental control and mental attacks. Although disguise and substitution were powerful, they were not omnipotent. For example, when Jiruo was facing Ant Jinglan and Zhenmu in the 10,000 Beast Mountain, these two abilities did not have much effect. The low level of the two skills was one thing, but the difference in strength could not be ignored. Therefore, he had to be careful. Everyone nodded seriously, although they still felt that it was ridiculous that they could really sneak in. Jiruo and the others followed the white devil ants down. The deeper they went, the thicker and sturdier the crystallized soil became. Moreover, because these crystals were formed by the condensation of some kind of bodily fluid secreted by the white devil ants, the smell was naturally not very friendly. Jiruo even recalled the scene when he stole the school's manure pit. Jiruo muttered softly, I wonder if Grandpa Shenmue will accept this thing. I'll find some time to knock a few pieces down and bring them back. It's a little unreasonable not to bring some local specialties on this trip. Meow dash, master, what did you say? It's nothing. Meow dash, one heard eat. What delicious food. They passed through the pitch-black crystal wall corridor. The thickness of the surrounding crystal wall had probably reached 7 to 8 meters. There were many impurities in the crystal wall, so the light from the outside could barely pass through. When he arrived at the storage room, there were actually many glowing stones inside. The dark blue light kept reflecting, and it was actually brighter than the upper floor. Jiruo quietly picked up a few luminous stones and stuffed them into his pocket. Let's begin. Everyone, be careful. If there's a need to communicate, leave it to me. They gently put down the wood or plant roots that they had put on for show and began to search. There were a lot of things in the storage room, but there were not many things that humans could use. The things collected by the white devil ants were naturally only usable by the white devil ants. Jiruo walked deeper into the forest alone. In front of him, there was a tree trunk that looked like a simple coffin on the back of a white devil ant. He wanted to take a look. The further they went in, the worse the smell in the air became. Even Luo Qian was about to faint from the smell. Even Jiruo felt that his eyes were a little stinging. His cosmetic contact lenses did not have the ability to isolate smells. Even so, Jiruo did not stop. A moment later, Jiruo stealthily found a tree trunk that seemed to be a coffin. As expected, Jiruo sighed as he looked at the corpse lying in the hollowed-out trunk, which had already shown signs of decay. It was one of the 3 missing villagers. The corpse seemed to have exquisite makeup on its face, but because it had already begun to rot and the bumpy journey, the makeup on its face had long been ruined. It was not terrifying, but it looked a little disgusting. The fatal wound was a penetrating wound at the back of his head. Other than that, his clothes were also torn in many places. Logically speaking, there should be many wounds on this corpse, but strangely, other than the penetrating wound at the back of his head, Jiruo did not find any other wounds. The corpse was disposed of. Jiruo frowned. The young man walked around the simple coffin and found a few lines of small words on the side of the coffin. The name of the deceased, the date of birth and death, and so on. Niu Dabeo, why didn't the special effect of the red scarf bring Niu Li's father back? At this moment, Niu Li's father was confirmed dead, but it was also because of this that Jiruo was even more confused. Where did Niu Dabeo's heroic spirit go? Suddenly, a faint white light shone beside Jiruo. The white cat appeared in a daze. Dabai. Why did you come out? Didn't you say that you don't have the divine power of incense? The white cat also found it strange. She looked into the deeper part of the cave and said, "One don't know either, Master, there seems to be an ownerless incense inside." Chapter 239, Chapter 239, Is there a possibility? Chapter 239, Is there a possibility? Ownerless incense. Are you sure you didn't sense wrongly? Jiruo's eyes widened. This place was the nest of the white devil ants, where would the incense come from? No, otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get out. The white cat sensed carefully and then said with uncertainty, "LT seems to have an owner, but that guy doesn't seem to be able to absorb it. So when Master just came here, all the incense that you accumulated was absorbed by me." The faith contained in this incense was unusually strong and pure, second only to Rosie. When Luo Jian heard her name, she said in a daze, "Meow dash, what does it have to do with me?" The smell here was extremely pungent. Ant-type demonic creatures did not have olfactory organs, so they did not care about this. As warriors, Jiruo and the others had long breaths. Internal breath was also a basic skill, so it was not particularly unbearable. However, Rosie was different. Ever since her last evolution, she had been in a state of intense hunger. Her perception in this aspect was still very strong, so she was also very affected. "Why don't I turn you into a card and put you away?" Jiruo rubbed Luo Jian's head with heartache. "You won't be able to smell it if you turn it into a card." Meow dash, "No, I want to accompany Master, you." "All right, Master, follow me." The white cat thought for a while and said, "By the way, Master, I have a vague feeling that a name seems to be very important to my current state. Have you thought of a name for me? How important is it?" "I'm not sure either. I just have a vague feeling that after I have an official name, I can't change it. However, now was not the time to think about this." Jiruo said, "I'll understand. I'll give you a name as soon as possible." "Yes, yes. Thank you, Master." Following the white cat's lead, Jiruo carefully walked deeper into the nest. The biology of demon creatures was very clear. In the nest of the ant tribe, the storage room was the place where the ant queen stayed. To the ant tribe, the most important thing was naturally the queen, followed by food. A moment later, Jiruo saw the gargantuan ant queen. Just the parts that Jiruo could see were more than 10 meters tall. On the ground, there were eggs the size of watermelons. Jiruo held her breath and leaned against the wall, her mind tense. The white cat flew over to take a look and whispered, "Master, don't worry. This old ant is sleeping." Jiruo heaved a sigh of relief. The queen ant was huge. Because its main function was to give birth, its energy was mainly supplied to this area, so its limbs, oh no, ants have many limbs. In short, in order to wholeheartedly strengthen its race, this fellow's hands and feet had degenerated. Its body was huge and it was inconvenient to move. Usually, it only ate raw food and slept when it was tired. Continue. Then, under the guidance of the white cat, Jiruo came to a small side room next to the ant queen's room. Why is there such a thing here? There was a simple spiritual altar in the side room. There were 3 pieces of paper pasted on the wall, on which were written the names and birth characters of the 3 villagers who had been killed. There were 3 small incense pots under the paper, each with 3 incense sticks. Perhaps because the air was thin deep underground, the 9 incense sticks burned weakly and were not extinguished. Jiruo was puzzled when suddenly dash. A wisp of green smoke condensed into Niu Dabeo's appearance and pounced fiercely at Jiruo. He roared. "Why didn't you save me? Why didn't you save me? I can live. My wife and children are still waiting for me at home." Jiruo had never thought that such a thing would appear. He was shocked. He subconsciously struck out with his palm. The palm passed through the green smoke face, but it did not hurt the other party at all. The green smoke dispersed and gathered again. Niu Dabao's expression became even more ferocious. The hatred in his eyes was so strong that it was almost tangible. At the critical moment, the white cat suddenly realized something. She glared at him and said in a sweet voice, "Calm down. We didn't do this to you." The Joss flame divine power turned into a voice and collided with Niu Dabao's body. The green smoke paused for a moment, and Niu Dabao's eyes regained clarity. "It's not you," he murmured and then said anxiously, "I'll remember you. You're the university student who came to our village before. Have you seen Xiaoli? Was he still alive? Tell me." Jiruo took a deep breath and said, "Uncle Niu, don't worry. Student Niu Li is fine now. With the statue, the children were not injured in the beast tide 2 days ago. The people in the village only suffered minor injuries. It's good that you're fine, it's good that you're fine, it's good that you're fine." Niu Dabao heaved a sigh of relief. His expression was both glad and disappointed. "Unfortunately, I can't go back." "Uncle Niu, how did you become like this?" Jiruo asked. "Who made this spiritual altar? How did I become like this?" Niu Dabao's eyes were blank for a moment, then he became abnormally angry and lost his rationality again. "Why didn't you save me? Why didn't you save me?" Seeing this, Jiruo was about to call White Cat to calm Niu Dabao down. However, the incense sticks under Niu Dabao's body burned out at this moment, and Niu Dabao's figure disappeared. "Master," said the White Cat. "If the person who created this altar is the same person who worshipped them, then I think I know who it is. The incense I absorbed just now contained that person's beliefs and wishes." "Who are you?" An unfamiliar voice sounded in Jiruo's mind. Jiruo didn't notice anything wrong and asked, "That's right, quickly tell me whose." As soon as the words left his mouth, Jiruo froze. At this moment, Jiruo felt a chill run down his spine and cold sweat broke out. He turned his head stiffly and revealed an ugly smile. "Your Majesty, you're awake." Just now, because he had seen something that should not have appeared in theory underground and Niu Dabao, who had died a long time ago, the amount of information was so great that Jiruo had almost forgotten his current situation. Niu Dabao made too much noise and woke up the Ant Queen. At this moment, the Ant Queen's head, which was completely out of proportion to its body, was almost stuck to Jiruo's body. Even if it was out of proportion, its head was almost as tall as Jiruo's. Its skin was white and tender, and its 6 black eyes were filled with curiosity and doubt. "Who are you?" the Ant Queen asked again. Her lips were not moving, but her voice sounded strangely in Jiruo's mind. "Why do you call me your Majesty?" The Ant Queen was curious and confused. In her eyes, Jiruo looked like her child, but not exactly. He was a little different. It felt like his child was originally very obedient, but one day, the obedient child suddenly put on a pair of shoes and pants, walked 8 steps away while shaking his hands, and opened his mouth to say social sayings. The change was too great. Jiruo quickly said, "I'm your child." He raised his hand and knocked twice on his helmet. "Look, didn't you give birth to my hard exoskeleton?" It seems to be the Ant Queen was a little confused. "I've given birth to too many. I can't remember. But why do you look like this? It's so strange. My descendants don't look like this." At this point, Jiruo could only bite the bullet and say, "You see, it's like this. Is there a possibility that I've mutated?" Part 9 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.